Good morning, members. Good morning, Minister and the team. It is time for us to officially start. Let me start by conveying my apology due to my health. I'm not good today, but I'll have to try. I have a very bad flu. That's why I put my mic on to save your lives. And let me take this opportunity and officially declare this meeting open. And mind you, members, this is the chamber. We need not to forget that this is the chamber. No food are allowed, only drinks. Yes, but can you settle down? Let me allow Nola to give us apologies that are sent through officially, not apologies that you just received them now by whispering, but official apologies as we are in an official meeting. Nola?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to yourself. Good morning to the Minister, the DG, and honorable members, colleagues as well. We've got a couple of apologies, one from the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. He'll be joining the meeting a little bit later because he's still engaged in another meeting with the President. Another apologies is from the Honorable Reddy, who is a member of this committee who's unable to attend today due to ill health. The last apology that we have is from Honorable Gama, who will be also attending the meeting a bit later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll request the Minister to introduce the team. Members won't introduce themselves because they don't change. For now, we still have the same members always since we've started. But I observe on the side of the Minister, there are new faces. So I'll request you, Minister, with your team to lead the introduction.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to the members of the Portfolio Committee. It's wonderful to be able to join you this morning. I won't be able to stay for the entire meeting because we do have a number of engagements before the budget policy statement this afternoon. But let me just introduce the Director General of the department, Mr. Sifiso. You know who he is, a very talented man who has been working side by side with me for the last 4 months. I think he's aged as much as I have, but still looking good. Let me then also introduce Mr. Nkonko, the Acting Director General for EPWP. We also have the Director for Data Management, Ms. Maluleke. She is with us here, and the Director for Finance, Mr. Kupani. Your writing is not the greatest. Then we also have the CEO for IDT, Ms. Tebogo Malaka. Ms. Tebogo Malaka. She is here as well. So that is the team with us today, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
How's Tabi? Can you assist by closing that door so that we, okay, thank you. You are welcome, dear. Your apology has just been tendered, but it seems like you're not late. Minister or members, are you sure you know people who were red? Do you know them? Minister, I think when you read a name, we want to understand and know who is who. You just talked to the panel. You did not introduce them. We expect maybe when you say it's Miss Malaka, she must rise so that members, when they interact or raise a hand, understand who is who. The reason why we said on your side will need introduction, it's because we don't know these members. They are new. We are aware the department is broad, it's big. So can you redo that, please?
I'll let them just either raise their hand. So let me ask the Director for Data Management, Ms. Maluleke, to identify herself. She is here. And also the Director for Finance, Mr. Kopane. Thank you. And then the IDT CEO as well is here. All right? Does that help? I'm sure I'm done.
No, thanks. Without wasting much of the time, today is a busy day. We must be out of this venue by 1 o'clock. Multi-party caucus, it's convening here for its first meeting. So by 1 o'clock, we must be out, done. So I'm going to request members to strictly, let's save time, but engage thoroughly. Today's meeting, as it will be led by yourself, Minister, we are requesting you to do your opening remark and give it to the DG or whoever amongst yourself to present your oh, this flu is dealing with me. To do the presentation as the 3 items that we requested from yourselves. All of us, we've got the agenda, but for the sake of South Africans, today's meeting or its purpose, we are dealing or we're getting a briefing by DPWI on the EPWP stage 5 with a focus on restoring the dignity of the indigent through vocational and further education and training skills development and its certification. We hope we're gonna get good news. And the EPWP incentive grant per province and municipalities that we are aware there's a huge cutoff, and the role of IDT and ongoing improvement of data collection, verification and recording of the employment opportunities per EPWP sector. Minister and your team, it's your turn. We are expecting you to take maximum of 45 minutes doing your presentation.
Thank you very much, Committee Chairperson, and to members and to the Deputy Minister. Let me say that I think that this presentation today by the Acting DDG comes at an important moment in the program's lifespan of roughly 20 years or more. It's been a program that has been important to millions of South Africans, that has provided a stopgap social relief for those that find themselves in some of the worst poverty in our country. It has provided people with an opportunity that they may never have got, and it has been widely rolled out across the country, and I think has been one of the successes of government in providing work opportunities in an economy that hasn't grown over the last 10 years, and that has seen unemployment rise, and that has seen poverty rise as well. I also think it's important that we also assess the shortcomings of the program and where it can be reformed and rethought to be a better program that meets the needs of South Africans for greater skills and for greater transparency and for better pay. And that is why this last week, Chair, you will have seen that I launched the EPWP listening tour in the Eastern Cape to go and listen to not only recipients, but also those communities that feel that the program is not working for them. And while it was also acknowledged by recipients, and there were some, the acting DDG was there as well, that it's worked, there's also a great feeling of distrust in the lack of transparency, in the abuse of how allocations have made, the involvement of political parties in the allocations, the involvement of councillors. I had women telling me that they have had to provide sex for job opportunities. We were told of how people, single individuals, are able to take 30,000 Rand a month out of the program for themselves, while others aren't able to obtain opportunities. And we heard of individuals who have never had an opportunity based on their political affiliation, the race group, or their language group. And so it's obvious, Chair, that abuse does exist. And it's obvious that we need to think about, do we want to see people being grass cutters or flag wavers or pothole patchers for the rest of their lives? And I think collectively we can all agree that the answer to that question is no. That we want to see people live lives of dignity. We want to see people bring dignity to their family. And EPWP has the potential to do that in great spades, I would say. And so what we have done is started a conversation around what does a reformed and renewed EPWP program look like that partners with the private sector and is able to leverage the money that is made available to us. And I think that there are good examples all around the world. I think there's good examples even in South Africa. The Presidential Employment Stimulus Program is one such good example. And so we want to see people gain greater skills, that they are able to climb up the opportunity ladder through being in this program, that there is transparency in how allocations are made, and that we are able to leverage the money that is budgeted for this program with the private sector to increase its value. The truth of the matter is, Chair and portfolio members, that this program has suffered a 700 million Rand budget cut over the last financial year, from 2.9 billion to 2.2 billion. This will have an adverse effect on the program and its deliverables. And so it would be unfair to expect us to do more with less. If we want to do more, we need more. And that's why we have to start getting innovative with the program and the resources that are available. Of course, Chair and members, we will lobby hard for an increase in funding to be available to us, but we cannot cut important social programs like EPWP through funding shortfalls, because it will only get worse. I can assure you it will not get better. So we need to fight hard collectively, and I think between ourselves in this room, I think that is a collective fight that we should take up. But be that as it may, we will be rolling the tour out across the country, and I invite any person to come and join us there. I must admit, and I said to the DDG walking in there, I said, I'm a bit nervous, because these things can either go one way or the other way. Chairs can either start flying around, or they can be very constructive. And I was amazed and quite humbled to see the constructiveness that the community of around 800 people engaged us in, because they understand the value of what this program could be going forward. I must say, Chair, and the DDG will bear me out, at one point I got quite emotional, and my heart was, as I said to the audience, it was quite heavy, because to come face to face with so many people who are in such dire positions, that face poverty on a daily basis, to hear from a woman who has cerebral palsy who has been excluded from work opportunities because of her disability, or to hear from people who've been excluded on the basis of their race, it's heartbreaking, if I'm honest with you. And so I really think that this program can and should evolve into a program that inspires hope and not despair. And so we've got a lot of work. There are some serious allegations that we have taken from that we will be investigating. There were a number of wards, DDG, that were mentioned there that we're going to look into the practices of allocations and how they've taken place. And I am also going to be personally intervening in some issues that were raised directly with me. But I do ask that we go through the presentation, understanding the challenges that it faces, and also to take your inputs on what we can do better and how we can reimagine and re-inspire this program for the next 20 and 30 years going forward. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
I thought you will hand over to the presenter.
Let me hand over to the presenter.
Honorable Chair, good morning, Minister, Deputy Minister, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Director General, and colleagues, good morning. On a lighter note, Chairperson, you could see how important EPWP is. It's very rare to have both the Minister and the Deputy Minister in the front of the Portfolio Committee. Chair, you advised that we should take not 45 minutes, which therefore means I should conclude my presentation by past. So, Chair, we thought we'll start the presentation by introducing it because there are 3 questions that were asked by the Portfolio Committee, and we thought we should directly respond to those questions. But we thought that we should then have a purpose, background to EPWP, the objectives of the program, as well as the strategies of the program, then the overall targets for EPWP, and EPWP Q1, and to a certain extent where we can, we deal with Q2. Then we begin to respond to the questions by the Portfolio Committee, which is restoring the dignity of the indigent through vocational and further education and training skills development. And then 2 will be the 2024-25 incentive grant per province and municipality. And then thirdly, it will be EPWP data management and the role of ITT. We thought we'd combine the presentation. The CEO of ITT would come in when necessary, and then we will deal with the priorities of the minister in relation to the 7th administration and how then we intend to go forward. So, Honorable Chair, I will move quicker on the first part, and then I'll slow down when I zoom into the questions that were posed by the Portfolio Committee. The purpose is exactly to deal with the 3 areas that the Portfolio Committee requested us to deal with. And then I move to give a bit of a background on EPWP. The EPWP started around 2003, and indeed it was as a result of the Growth and Development Summit. And then the focus at the time was around infrastructure, because it was about job massification. And at that particular time, the job massification was focused purely on infrastructure project, where we were seeking to change yellow machines to human beings who will then participate in the program. And then the next one is the strategic intent of EPWP as part of public employment program. In a nutshell, it started as a social intervention. It was about, people being able to put food on the table, but at the same time, they then contribute in terms of doing something about it. And then the EPWP was then initiated. And as I said earlier on, it was linked to infrastructure. And then the question that we're asking ourselves, do we still need EPWP? And the answer is a big yes. And I'm sure the members will agree with the minister and everyone to say we do need that. And why we are saying we need EPWP is because there's still high unemployment. We know that EPWP is not on its own the end of everything, but it should prepare participants to be able then to go up the level and be able to go and seek permanent employment. But again, we are saying part of the problem is that there are too many unskilled South Africans, and therefore you need then to deal with that. There is also service delivery backlog. then you use EPW participants in order to deal with that. And obviously, as a social intervention, you deal with issues of poverty alleviation. And lastly, through EPWP, you can deal with issues of social cohesion, where people find each other and are able to live together. And then we then also, as an introduction, deal with EPWP achievement over the past phases. I'm not going to deal with that. There were indeed challenges in phase 4. We slightly missed our target, but what then changed from other phases in comparison to phase 5 is that we are now programmatic, and we try to mirror what the presidential stimulus program has done during the times of COVID, and therefore we seek to improve the way we deal with things. And then the next slide deal with the sectors that we cover in EPWP. There is about 4 sectors, not in order of priority. They are all important. The first sector is that of infrastructure sector. Around it, we have your road maintenance, pothole patching. We've got all construction projects. They fall under the infrastructure sector. The environment and which the infrastructure sector is led by DPWI, which is Department of Public Works, in terms of coordination and all that. Then we have environment and culture sector, which on its own is led by DFFE, Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment. Again, there we deal with working on water, working on fire. You would remember when we launched phase 4 in the Eastern Cape, it was a national launch. There was this parade by working on fire. It's a program and a product of EPWP. They are now able to go to Canada and to go to Europe and assist in terms of fighting fires. They were then a product of EPWP. A social sector, it's led by DSD. It's where we deal with issues around early childhood, how we participate through EPWP, as well as your school nutrition program and so on. All the social programs fall under that. And then the non-state sector, in the main, it's 2 departments that are involved in non-state sector. It's us, DPWI, EPWP through IDT NPO program, and then it's COCTA through the Community Works program. Then this slide seeks to give an objective of the EPWP. I'm not going to repeat it. It's around employment, making sure there's income, and then there's development of communities. And then we've got 5 strategies that we are currently focusing on. During the 6th administration, there were areas that were picked up which were not going well for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and phase 4. When we were planning for phase 5, the focus areas were that we need to improve coordination, because at some point we were known as Oma Tambalala because of those social media pictures where EPW participants were lying over tombstone in graveyards and so on. And that showed that there was no proper coordination, no supervision. Supervision not at a head office level, but at a ground level. If you are in Buffalo City, you needed people to be able to deal with supervision and coordination at that particular level. And then the second issue is effective and fair recruitment, and to reach EPWP all groups. The minister would, as you have heard the minister, when we were in Kabeja, one of the areas that even the participants who were in the program were complaining about is our recruitment system. And then the third one is the exit strategy. We're all saying, even the minister in the 7th administration is saying, it's well and good to have participants in EPWP, but what's next? If you were in a 2-year program, how do we exit you? What are the things that we needed to do? And the 6th administration have said the same thing. And we said there are 2 areas in which we can exit participants. 1 is through intensified training, and 2 is through enterprise development. And lastly, obviously, is the massification of work opportunities so that we reach more. And then in this slide, honorable members, you remember that when the president launched the EPWP phase 5 in Eastern Cape in March this year, he made a commitment of the creation of 5 million work opportunities between now and 2029 March. This slide is just showing per sector in the bottom part what will be the contribution. On infrastructure is 1.6 million, on environment and culture is 941,000, on social sector is 1 million, and on non-state, which is us and COCTA, is 1.5 million. That then gives a total of 5 million in terms of the sector contributions. Below that, we're looking at spheres of government. When I joined the department in November last year, I thought that municipalities will contribute more in terms of work opportunities. To my surprise, they contribute less. For municipalities, they give us almost 1.1 million. but provincial governments combined is 2 million, and then national departments, a few of them, they give us 2,264,000. So that's the breakdown. One of the issues that we needed to deal with is to say which categories qualify for EPWP. EPWP has no age limit. Yes, it is biased towards youth, and that is why we are saying 16 to 35 is 55%. But EPWP is open to everyone for as long as you are not benefiting in one way or the other in government, either through a grant or something, therefore you don't qualify to be in EPWP. That is why we have women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So the notion of EPWP only being for youth is not a correct one, is that the emphasis is on youth because the youth is the future. Then here we are just demonstrating the performance overall as to what happened in Q1 in terms of our performance. We look at, for instance, environment and culture sector, work opportunities reported, they are 99,000, but the target was 186,494. And then the percentage of work opportunity target achieved is 53%. So we're sitting at 53%, and then the average duration of work in that area is 41 days. And then Treasury likes what is called full-time equivalent. I simplify it. I say when Treasury talks about full-time equivalent, they want to compare the number of days that you work up to the months that you work and in a year. So they want to see if at least a month you work a number of days that would closer to be you, to be seen to be someone who works almost a longer period. And therefore, they want to see when we do these things, how many in a program are full-time equivalent, which demonstrate more working hours. So we are then saying the full-time equivalent there is 22% of the number. So out of 100, 22 will be a full-time equivalent. And then the average labor intensity, which basically means compare machines to people that you use. What do you have there? It's 86% manual labor in that labor intensity in that category. And then the participants whom training was reported in the EPWP reporting system, of that number of 99,000 is 8,027. I used infrastructure as an example. It follows with others. I'm not going to repeat those that follow below that because I wanted to show infrastructure as an example. And that pie chart then represent, each color would represent a sector as to how they've performed as it is written below that. Then coming back now to the questions that were raised by the portfolio committee, because the first part was just to give a broader picture of where we are with EPWP. How do we then restore the dignity? How do we look in particular on the issue of vocational and further training and further education and training? I must say upfront that we would want to do more on vocational and training, but for now we're not where we want to be. As the minister was saying, most of the issues relate to budgets and whether the money is available. Any money that we take from EPWP for training, it would mean a reduction in the number of work opportunities in terms of the money that we have, because you can't take money anywhere else. It's the money that you have for work opportunities. If you reduce it, you put it into training, you will have less number of people that you put into the program. So we are then saying, what is it that we talk about when we talk about skills development and certification? Now we're saying training in EPWP talks to the quality of the structured learning interventions. What are the interventions that we have in terms of that particular training? What is it that is there in that training that will make participants' employability to improve so that they stand a chance to join the working class? So we're then saying the training interventions may take two forms. One, it could be an accredited or non-accredited skills development initiatives. They comprise different things like your practicals, your theory, and also workshop on financial literacy and the works. The second one is any capacity building initiative of a portable skill or personal growth. There we talk about, workshops on financial literacy, job readiness, and so on, which is for participants themselves so that they are able, if they become entrepreneurs later on, to sustain themselves. We then go on to define a trained EPWP. What does it refer to? If you are saying you are a trained EPWP, it means two things. It's one of the two things. One, we have attended and completed training, and then you have, there is an attendance register that we use as POE. And then secondly, you have a certificate or you have been certificated by the relevant authority, whichever that is providing training. Certification, therefore, is a trained participant that would have a certificate of completion, and then the certificates will be divided into two. It is that of attendance, where it will define the modules that we have attended, and then the certificate of competency, which will then talk to the record of attendance and details of module that we have attended. Certificate of competency is where we have credit awards, is where we have results, is where we have qualifications, but therefore we were also stating that SETA is normally involved there, but we also involved QTCO, which is the Quality Council for Trade and Qualifications Authority, that then are responsible for authentication of certificates for participants and anyone who would claim to have been certificated. Funding mechanisms for EPWP training. I'm not going to read through the slide, except to say that the funding mechanisms is either we do it private, we go and seek funding, or we try and use the budget that we already have per public body. The external sourced funding by DPWI include, but not limited to, the National Skills Fund, the SETA grants, the TVET and university bursaries, if we get them, though they are in drips and drabs. The Department of Basic Education also with the funding of adult education and training. And then there are private providers on non-state sector funding, which fund capacity building, and they sometimes are willing to fund it. And then the other part, where we fund through the money that we send via grants. We'll talk about grant funding later on. In most instances, we'll say if we fund Buffalo City for what you call a project or program, to a minimum of 2%, let me say it's a minimum of 2% of that budget must be set aside for training. Why do we say minimum? It's because the standard says it is between 2% and 5%. Then it's for training. But as I said earlier on, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, if we were to put more money into training, in terms of the allocation of the grant funding, it will mean less number of participants joining EPWP program. Then the next slide is just to talk on the exit strategy. Again, the summary of the slide is saying all participants, the 6th administration, the 7th administration is saying, what is the plan towards exiting participants? We're saying there are two areas in which we can do that. It is through training and through enterprise development. We have done an exercise on our own, which we're still going to be sharing with the minister, that says, if you are to intensify training and fund it, how many billions of rands would need in order for us to be able to skill properly the 1 million participants in the current financial year or in the next financial year, as it will start in 25-26. Then here, we thought we'd share with the members the risks and some mitigation that we think of in terms of dealing with those risks. One of the risks in training, which are associated with training, obviously it's funding, which the minister has spoken about, and funding is limited, and therefore there are issues that we cannot deal with in training. But again, we're talking about strengthening partnerships, engaging with TVET colleges. Yesterday, our team was meeting with them. The other one, which you'll see when I go to the training that we have done, is dropouts during training. Even on the critical training of artisanship, minister and deputy minister, you have people who are dropping out. That training is a 3-year training. It's the one that will make you an artisan, and the country currently is desperately looking for the skill of artisanship, but we still have dropouts. The question therefore is, are we then training the right people? Do they have interest? The gap that we have picked up is that sometimes we train people, but we have not interviewed and interacted with them if they have love, passion for this, or it is mere about them putting food on the table. So that's another exercise that we need to put into the process. Then the limited accreditation providers, indeed, we seek to work with SETAs and the QCTO so that at least we have a more partnership, and that is how we seek then to deal with the issues of training and partnership. Then here we thought, let's have a spreadsheet, which I'm not going to sit very much on it. This spreadsheet is just showing members, because the members do have this report. It's about 2 pages, if not 3 of it, that shows where are we with the partnerships that we have. An example is NSF, where we have a partnership with them, which is National Skills Fund. Our partnership is for 8,100 participants. It's a budget, which is a budget sitting with NSF of about 228 million. We are with them since 2019 and we have extended to 2026. And then that's what we have with them. And then it goes to SETA, which I'll make another example. That is Construction and Education Authority. It's written there at the bottom, which is our main SETA, the Construction, Education and Training SETA. Again, there we've got 4 million and our program started in 2018. And then there's AgriSETA, which we have a relationship with. And then it goes on to the next slide where we talk about QCTO working together with South African Public Colleges Organization, which is an organization that is an umbrella body of all colleges. Again, our relationship is between 2024 and 2026. And then TVET colleges, we have a SLA with them. Our agreement is ending in 2026, as well as the Financial Services Conduct Authority. There is training that is provided, that is funded 100% by Financial Services Conduct Authority, where they train a trainer. So what they do, they train our own officials who are training as specialists and facilitators, and then they go out and train the participants. All that we pay for when we do that is material when we go and train the participants. So zooming in now to a specific vocational and training conducted, because the portfolio committee was specific. We thought we should share this with the portfolio committee. The numbers are not very high, but we would present to the portfolio committee that in the Eastern Cape, we have done specific vocational training with them. It was on environmental practice. We've got a mix. There's private training and there's a public training. Public will be your TVET. And then for environment practice in the Eastern Cape, we've got 38 participants that we trained through vocational training. Gauteng, it was assistant handyman. It was 20. Limpopo, it was a renewable energy workshop assistance through TVET, is 399. And in Mpumalanga province, it was 2 trainings. One was environmental practice with 230 participants, and then plant production with 40 participants. And in Western Cape, it was environment practice 37, bricklaying assistant 15, and plumbing 15. The unlucky provinces is KZN, the province of both the minister and the deputy minister, the Free State, the Northwest, and the Northern Cape. Now, why those ones have not been trained? The process was slow, but these are being contracted through the TVET colleges, and we've got dates as to when they are going to start. For example, KZN is starting on the 4th of next month, Free State on the 1st, and then Northwest mid-November, and Northern Cape will start in January. So at least they are covered. Then we just want to demonstrate to the portfolio committee that we have submitted proposals to the following SETAs. It's Services SETA, MES SETA, and Unemployment Insurance Fund. We've done those submissions. 2 were in May and 1 in August. We are hoping for the best that will get that funding, and it's the funding that we'll use in the financial year 25-26 in order to augment our budget for training. And on this one, I don't know if this slide is visible enough, but this slide, honorable members, we thought we should share with the members. What is the cost of training? Basically, it says to members, if we were to say to us, train 500,000, train 1 million, what will be the cost on what training? We're starting with the first one on the skills program. That skills program for 15 days, which is done by TVET colleges per participant, you would require to have 5,250. It goes on to say that for learnership, which is 12 months, which is done through SETA, it is 56,000. It's almost the money you pay for full attendance at a University of Technology or university. Then if you look at the next one, which is your apprenticeship, that one is done through SETAs, you will require 205,000. And then it goes on to 55,000 for the artisan recognition of prior learning. And then it goes to SMME for training, which is 15 days, is 5,000. And then the last one is the one that we do with the Department of Education, which is 1.5. So you will have an idea if we were to have 1-year program or 3-year program, how much we need per participant. Hence we included that particular slide. Then we are then giving the breakdown now of AgriSETA, what we are doing with them in terms of artisan training before they go to apprenticeship. So we will have a breakdown. The focus areas will be apprenticeship, completion of attendance, they get full PPE. If they are to be chefs, we give them full set of knives. If they are plumbers, they get a toolbox. If they are electrician, they get the same, and it prepares them to go for a trade test. And there's 400 of them between 2003 and 2026 that we are looking at. And we have a breakdown here. To members who are from the Eastern Cape, we have a disclaimer. In the Eastern Cape, there is 0 because it was cancelled. And the reason for cancellation is that the service provider that was appointed to do the training in the Eastern Cape passed away. And in passing away, he was the partner with his wife, and the wife came back and requested the cancellation of the training because she was not prepared to proceed with the training. We then engaged with Agrisita to look for a new service provider. We started a process in the first instance where that particular process also did not go well. And then when we went again, and then Agrisita said, it's too late, let's use the money somewhere else, and Eastern Cape will be considered in the next phase. That next phase should be a phase of between now and 2029. So it was 10 of them, and then it was cancelled. But in the Free State, 40 were trained, and out of 40 learners, so it was 100% in terms of, it was number of learners approved was 40, learners who entered were 40, but of the 40, 15 were dropouts. I think members will take interest in that. The 40 dropped out in the Eastern Cape. Gauteng with 162, dropouts were 18. KwaZulu-Natal, 37, 6 dropouts. Limpopo, 47, 6 dropouts. Mpumalanga, 40, 11 dropouts. Northwest, 0 dropout, it's 10 out of 10. And Western Cape dropouts are 15. Now, that gives you the total of 400 minus 10 is 390, which basically means those that have successfully completed the project 119. Of the 119, the planned full trade test will be for 29 participants, which then will take the 3 years that I was talking about. Then these are the trades that they look at. They range from boiler maker up to a fitter. So that's the type of trades that they have under this. So then we move to the second part of the presentation, the incentive grant per province and municipality. On this one, Honorable Chair and members, this slide summarizes what this thing is about. We've got 3 types of grants. One is the integrated grant for provinces. Second one is the integrated grant for municipalities. And the last one is social sector incentive grant for provinces. I must say, we are currently reviewing the grant, the social sector incentive grant, and the integrated grant for provinces. We are proposing that they become one so that you have broader, a bigger budget and broader participation by departments. The total budget that we disperse via Treasury gives to us and it goes to provinces and municipalities is 1.2 billion. Now, of that 1.2 billion, the pie chart on the right demonstrate what goes, how much goes to each program. For example, integrated grant is 26%, which is 311 million. EPWP integrated grant from municipalities is 560 million, 48%. And then social sector EPWP incentive grant is 305 million, which is 26%. The intention is to combine the 2 on the right to be one, so that we do not have too many grants, so that we are able then to manage the grants properly. This one is a busy graph, but what it simply shows is to where we are in terms of the second quarter. If you look on the left of the screen, that is social sector EPWP incentive grant. The color that is blue is approved payment schedule, and then the color that is red is actual. So it balances. If you look, it's 70%, everything is up to standard. So that sector is performing very well. The challenge is on the integrated grant for provinces. In that integrated grant for provinces, we combined everything per province. So it's your Department of Health, Department of Education. It's about 17 departments that are involved in the EPWP integrated grant. Where you see the green going down is where we have not performed well up to quarter 2. And those greens going down for now, the worst performing province is KZN, where it's sitting at minus 80% that was not performed. So that green shows that they have not performed. And then, of course, we are intervening, we are engaging, we are writing to accounting officers to say they must report on this, and we are sure that they will be coming. Maybe the director, the finance, would have an updated information as to which provinces have responded. Then this slide, it's the same slide. It narrates the slide that I've shown before. There is nothing different except to say this one also showed the expenditure as per allocation, and you will notice that under social sector grant, we're high up there and we're performing very well. But also on the integrated grant, it proves when you look on the right that other provinces are not doing well. KZN, for instance, expenditure is sitting at 41% under EPWP integrated grant per province. So it's a slide that narrates the previous one. Then what then we would want to present to members as the summary of this is that according to the approved payment, 70% of allocation was planned and transferred in Q2. So that's generally what had happened. But in the social sector, that's where we are saying we are doing well. But in the EPWP integrated grant, that's where we have issues. It's 50% allocation was transferred to provinces by end of September, and the department was not able to transfer 70% because we should have transferred 70%. What are the reasons for us not transferring? Non-compliance by those public bodies in departments and provinces. The non-compliance refers to the following: failure to report on projects because they must report before we give them the second tranche. So they fail. Failure also to load information into the reporting systems, and failure also to spend 25% during the first quarter. Because in the first quarter, they should have spent 25%. When they had failed to do that, we then withhold the tranche for the second quarter. So those are in the main the reasons why these departments have not performed. So the provincial departments then reported the expenditure of 152 million in total, which is 49% of the allocation. So that will then be the summary. On municipalities, again, we are showing municipalities there. In the first quarter, generally municipalities perform well because of the skewed financial year of the province, as well as, of the national and provincial government and municipalities. You will notice that the first tranche allocation of 25% was done, and all municipalities received their tranche as normal. But the expenditure, which we want to focus on, is that of that expenditure, for example, Eastern Cape, the expenditure as allocated was 34%, and then Free State 20%, Gauteng 22%, KwaZulu-Natal 50%, and then it goes to a total, if you look at the allocation, which is given to municipalities is 560 million in total, which the amount that has been transferred to date is 140 million, which is 25%, and our expenditure is 187. So we're not bad there because it's the first quarter with municipalities. Then this then gives the breakdown in terms of the social sector incentive grants per province. If we use the Eastern Cape as an example, they reported in terms of work opportunities 4,869. The reported full-time equivalent as required by National Treasury of the 4,869 was 1,978. So the reported work opportunities were 4,131 on the integrated grant for provinces. The full-time work opportunities is 1,424. If we move to the integrated grant for Eastern Cape, reported work opportunities 2,742. The full-time equivalent would be 579. As I said, full-time equivalent puts you closer to an almost someone who's working like someone who's employed for 8 hours a day, but it's not really 8 hours, but it's closer to that. So then in summary, we're saying, if you look at all provinces, the total reported work opportunities is 14,551. And then the total full-time equivalents reported is 17,776. And the work opportunities that are on the reporting system they are 62,792. So that then explains the performance of municipalities. The third part deals with, the second layer of this deals with the review of conditional grant. Again, honorable members, I'm not going to read what is written in the presentation. I'm going to narrate the reason why we review the EPWP conditional grant. We are reviewing the EPWP conditional grant because there's non-compliance, we don't get value for money, we don't have a proper coordination. We do not, as the department, have, I don't want to say total control, full control of what is happening on the ground. They will do as they please. We can't go in and intervene. So therefore, we are saying maybe it will be appropriate that in order for us to assert our control, and in order for us, when you go to a municipality, they listen to us, a certain portion of the grant should be controlled and be directed by the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure through EPWP and working with the entities of the department. In this case, for example, with ITT. So therefore, we're saying there's a need then for us to review the conditional grant. And National Treasury also agrees with us, and we've engaged on the process of saying we are reviewing the conditional grant. We've got two scenarios that we are putting before Treasury in terms of the model change. One scenario is conditional grant with increased eligibility on compliance requirements, and the other one is creating a subsidy mechanism. What does that mean in summary? It simply means that we are saying we need to look at the baseline of the conditional grant, both provincial and municipalities, and we have what we call as a proposal, a 60-40 split. 60% of the grant goes to a municipality. If it's Buffalo City, I like to use Buffalo City as an example. I don't know why. If it's Buffalo City, we give them 60% of their baseline, but 40% remains with the department. And in the department, in order for us to have proper capacity, we work with ITT in order to make sure that we are able to monitor and manage the 40%, and we call it a subsidy grant, and we are engaging with a national treasury. The other one that we are saying is that we need to combine the two grants that are for provinces. You have one for municipalities and one for provinces, so that you don't have two grants for that purpose, so that we are able then to deal with issues of monitoring, and we've engaged with the National Treasury on those issues. Now, the roadmap that we have in terms of the review of conditional grant is started on 14 June 2024. Treasury is with us. We're talking to them. We're attending meetings with them. I can report to the minister and deputy minister and members that the day before yesterday, we received the first response from Treasury about the direction we are taking. One, they are approving the combination of the two grants for provinces, but they are not approving the 60-40 split. For now, they are saying they are, when we're doing our exercise of reviewing, they are doing the review of all grants that they do nationally, including our grants. And therefore, they will come back to us to say whether they agree with the split of 60-40. So that's what we are waiting for. The timelines, if I start there, we are at a period where we've listened to our public bodies. The next step now will be to meet with National Treasury for the last time to look at the submissions and the framework. The timeline is that, which we have agreed with National Treasury, is that we should complete everything by the 2nd of December 2024. The minister asked a question yesterday. Are we still on track with our discussions with National Treasury and reviewing the conditional grant? My answer to the minister was that yes, we are on track, but that we are on track does not necessarily mean National Treasury will agree with us. But our deadline to conclude everything is the 2nd of December 2024. The aim is for us to be able to have control and to be able to intervene where municipalities are not performing in terms of the integrated, in terms of the grant funding. Now, the last part deals with EPWP, data management, and role of ITT. Now, ITT, they are our partners. They are an entity of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. And ITT, for us, was appointed in the main to deal with issues of non-state sector, which is the NPO program. And we do have an MOU with ITT effective at 30 April 2024. And the mandate that we have between us and ITT deals with the following areas: social facilitation, technical support on infrastructure and EPWP related program, provision of monitoring and evaluation support, and then assisting us to evaluate our programs. Currently, we have requested ITT to do an exercise in terms of NYS, National Youth Service, that we have been funding as a department, and we are saying, ITT, please do an assessment for us, track and trace the participants of NYS that were with us in the past 3 years. Where are they? Are they working? What are they doing? That report will then tell us if there is a need to change the route that we need to take in terms of NYS, or we continue with what we are continuing with. We are hoping, and we're putting pressure on ITT that that assessment should be completed the latest by February 2025, so that we begin to implement the changes when we start the new financial year, so that you don't do this report for the sake of doing them, and you don't put them into action in terms of the correction, the correctness of the program. They are also helping us with the NPO program, which has about 47,000 participants, and they run that process for us. It's a project and a program for EPWP. And then they also deal with the issues of data management throughout provinces as well as municipalities in terms of EPWP. Then the role of independent development trusts with us in terms of what I've spoken about. What is it that they deal with social facilitation? They participate in 80 municipalities on infrastructure projects. And then there's those departments that I was talking about, 18 departments, where the performance is green, where we have not achieved. It's your roads, it's your human settlement, public works, education, and health. They also are then with us in terms of facilitation. And then there are 3 national departments that are involved. It's water and sanitation, human settlement, as well as public works. So that's on social facilitation. Whilst I'm there, the social facilitators are underutilized, minister and members. They are only focusing on infrastructure projects. We are saying social facilitation should be across all sectors, environment and culture, social sector, they all need social facilitation. So as we go forward, work into the ITT will increase in terms of them participating in that. Data capturing and data management, that then is the area where the AG will come and look into if it correlates with what we are saying. So they assist us in data capturing. They are data capturers allocated to various provinces. They would group provinces, 3 per group, and then they manage those sectors. The minister priority projects, during the 6th administration, there were priority areas that were discussed, for instance, cleaning of government offices and so on. We are saying when we work with ITT, at any given time, during the 7th administration, if Minister McPherson says, here are my priority areas, and they are in a space where we work with ITT, we will elevate those, we make them ministerial priorities. Remember, the minister also signs an agreement with the president on specific number of work opportunities that they will create, and therefore that area also become an area where becomes the priority for the minister. And then on data verification also, we are looking at the projects that we implement, and then also an incentive grant project as well as NPO project. Overall technical support, ITT is assisting us there. I must say, Honorable Minister and DM and members, that there seems to be double dipping in terms of technical support. We will be doing an exercise, double dipping in the sense that we've got technical support officials that are employed. We've got technical supports that we do through ITT. We've got technical supports that we do through ILO. And we've got technical support that is done through MISA for municipalities. And MISA should take responsibility in terms of supporting municipalities, in terms of infrastructure projects. Then we can therefore support but it seems as if all the support that is required, even for municipalities, and they come to EPWP, DPWI, come and assist, but MISA has a particular role to play, and we are engaging with COPTA so that there is no double tipping, and we need to restructure our technical support as DPWI working with the ITT. And then we've got a systems approach, and then there's also areas of research where if we're funding, we'll be able to use and work with ITT in relation to those particular areas. This slide shows the data management process. In summary, there is a planning and capturing of actual achievements, which is done. And then where public bodies are required to follow certain protocols, feed in information, and then there's processing of actual information and achievements, where, for instance, the uploading of IDs and the information into the system. Then there's last process, where once that information has been uploaded, it needs to be verified. Part of the problem that we are grappling with is that when our data manager, director, data management, once that information is there, when we go into the system of Home Affairs, as well as the system of DPSA, we put in these names, we discover that there are dead people that we are paying in EPWP, that is in municipalities, that is in provinces, that is national departments. There are also people who have PESA that we are paying. I remember there was once a parliamentary question on us paying people who are on PESA. Now, that exercise, one is that there are participants that are paid through PESA, and rightly so, because certain departments have chosen the route of paying EPW participants through PESA because it becomes easier for them, which therefore is not an anomaly. But I think we need to improve as a department and be able to explain upfront which EPW participants are correctly paid through PESA, and then we categorize them so that we don't have a query with AG, because we have not done that upfront. So we're hoping that we'll do that upfront this time so that we do not have that query. Then there are those that will appear as having passed away and so on. But there are also those that we realize that they are indeed being paid twice. They are in a municipality or a province. The problem that we have had, honorable members and minister, is that nobody amongst us was taking a responsibility to say, once we have picked up someone in Buffalo City who is paid but is also on PESA, who pushes the button to stop the EPWP funding? That's the issue now we need to resolve. Who pushes the button and who must assist someone who pushes the button? We are saying, if that person is in Buffalo City, our office, the director responsible for data management must be able to pick that one up, and there must be a letter from the DTG EPWP to the accounting officer of Buffalo City for him to push the button, so that when portfolio committee do visits to Buffalo City, they discover that someone is being paid, they could follow the POE to say who then must take responsibility and track it and say, but you received a letter on this date, you did not push the button, therefore you are liable. So that's the process then that we are trying to establish now, because we have been pointing fingers at each other in terms of who should push the button. We are saying the button should be pushed by the accounting officer of a public body that is paying the participant. The EPWP data collection improvement when it also includes that we want to standardize data collection template that could be used to collect project and participants' data. One area that we also need to look into, protection of information of participants, the hacking of government websites and so on, that would need a foolproof. We are hoping that our IT and the changes and the direction as led by the minister and deputy minister will improve the quality of our IT, and then that will then be able to deal with the vulnerability that have already been picked up by AG, that our system is vulnerable. Anyone can hack into it and get the information. So we are then reliable. We rely on our ITC to help us dealing with that. Training sessions are also provided, and we work together with IDT in terms of these trainings. And there are staff members based at IDT head office, but there are also staff members on data collection based in our offices, but there are also staff members based in various offices of public works in provinces, which we call our regional offices, that they are dealing with this info with data collection. And then the biometrics mobile app is piloted for real-time data collection, reducing manual errors. On that mobile app, an expert can speak more on it if there are questions around it, which is the director data management. And we seek then to enhance the EPWP reporting system. In that system, the main problem, the department that contributes more than any other department in terms of work opportunities is COGTA. They've got CWP. Last year, in terms of phase 5, they will contribute 1.3 million work opportunities. Last year, they contributed 200,000, but we only managed to have only half of that put into the system. Part of the challenge that they had and that we are discussing with them is that we keep on improving our system, because their system talks to our system. As we improve, sometimes there are those glitches, and we are now working with them. There is a task team that has been formed between COGTA and us to deal purely with issues of technical glitches that we are experiencing, because we lose numbers if we do not put the CPW in the system. The last slide, second last, the 7th administration, the minister has sat with us and at a workshop with us in EPWP. He has given us the direction as to what is it that is required. Part of what is required at a strategic focus level is that EPWP must be reformed. Around the reforming EPWP, we're looking at focusing at emphasizing skills that will make EPWP participants to be able to be employable, and they are able to secure long-term employment. The minister is emphasizing that we should be able to deal with entrepreneurship in terms of us reforming EPWP. And therefore, that would mean that a participant could be their own bosses and they become entrepreneurs. The area also of focus is that you can't achieve that if you don't focus on skills development. Hence, then the minister is saying that we need to move beyond the short-term employment and by making skills development to be the central pillar of EPWP. Once you do that, you give that skill, this person is therefore able to move from temporary work opportunities to permanent. We need to shift focus on piece jobs and then issue certification for skills that those participants will get. The other area is co-funding. The minister is saying we can't achieve this if we are not bringing the private sector on board. So the private sector co-fund in relation to the skill is quite important for this program to go forward. And then the impact that the minister is looking for is the impact that will be able to secure permanent employment for participants that are within the EPWP program. So it therefore means as EPWP, we still have work to do in relation to this vision of the minister in order to make sure that we take this process to its finality where there is indeed secure employment for participants. And that then brings me to the conclusion, Honorable Chair, of the presentation. I'm not sure if there will be additions, particularly from ITT. And then thank you, Honorable Chair, Minister, Deputy Minister, and members.
Thank you. Nevertheless, I gave you extra 10. You said, you indicated when you started or we're gonna finish it at first. You took extra 10 minutes, but it's fine. DM, can you come in and give us your input? Deliberately, I'm not gonna allow IDT. IDT will respond on questions.
No, thanks. Greetings to you, Chair, the Minister, members of the committee, the DDG Congo, as well as the CEO of IDT and all who are in the meeting. As said by the Minister, we welcome the opportunity. I think there's been a detailed presentation, but critically is to try and then deal with this issue of the questions that are raised by the portfolio committee, especially of creating dignity in the work of the EPWP. When we were conceptualizing the phase 5, which was launched by the president in early this year in Eastern Cape for 2024 to 2029, we thought we should identify few areas that we can implement throughout the country. And we said 4 areas. One would be waste management. And then we came with a concept of one township, one waste management center. In that, you will be able to have waste pickers, but graduating into a cooperative that may end up running this waste management center, recycling. So we're thinking of that kind, and if you look on that, it brings some certainty. And right from the beginning, you will know what skills are required, what would be the role of the private sector to support. The second area was road paving, the bricks paving, especially in your small cities and your small towns. The third area was maintenance of public facilities. In Eastern Cape, around Umtata, the region, they started this program, and we thought it's a good pilot where they will use EPWP to clean government facilities. You'll find that there are facilities where there are no people who do maintenance. And the last one was energy. People will be able to fix electricity and all of that. Another element is that whatever is done in the EPWP must not conflict with what is defined as employment, permanent employment, because that will then require engagement with network and all of that. So these are areas that we thought we should channel effort to, which you could implement throughout the country. My last point is the disadvantaged municipalities. The allocation has been based on the more you report, it's the more you get an allocation. Now, smaller municipalities with no capacity will not be able to report, and they will not be able to get resources going forward. Hence, the view of splitting, have 60-40, and ensure that that 40 is used to intervene in these smaller municipalities in particular, which are needed. Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. Thanks.
Thank you, dear members. It's time for us to interact with the presentation. There's no need for you to raise a hand. All of you are going to speak, starting from yourself, Lelange, until the end to Sipho, in that sequence. You please don't make a long preamble. Give it a minute, but be straight to the question. Let's not confuse. It's not a political session, but it's about service delivery. And I'm happy, I'm glad it shows EPWP, it's important, where both executives are here. And they are, you can hear all of them, they want this thing to work. Indeed, Minister, we're going to be part of you into lobbying more funds to be put in the program. Lelang, you may start.
Thank you so much, Chair. Honorable Chair, honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy, the DG, the IDT CEO, and all present here today, good morning. I must say to the presenter, Buffalo City is also my city. There are two things I want to speak to before I go to questions. The first one is an affirmation that we will work with the department to maintain and sustain the program for the benefit of the ordinary people, because it has a huge interest. The second issue is that we want to encourage the department to work on the safety valves so that as to avoid the abuse of the program. Now, the few questions I want to get on, the first one is the one that the department failed to meet its first quarter target on the EPWP. And can you explain that? Why did you fail? And how are you going to correct this? The second one is in relation to the question of training and skilling. Why does the National Treasurer not grant a budget for the training and skilling? Is it because the department is raising funding for the program? The other question is only, what are the reasons for the dropout rate in the skilling program? And how does the department envisage to ensure that it resolves this through a more rigorous selection criteria? The last one is only grant separation, and integration. Are you confident that it will work? Because it is you who separated it from the beginning. Based on the taking into consideration that the level or the state and the capacity of the local state and the municipalities is not in the same. Those are small and those who are got a capacity. I'm happy that, Chair, in closing, that the department is involving its entity IDT in terms of the work that it's doing. Because when I was reading the legacy report and went to the previous documentation by the department, I felt that we have to put more and capacitate our IDT and give more work and responsibilities instead of giving in the main some of the entities that might be in competition with. But of course, I'm happy that we're getting a report that there's more work that is being given to it. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I must first start with the presenter. I want to offer him some water because he was running a marathon around through this documentation and presentation, but thank you so much. And a nice shirt you've got today. I want to start first by making a remark on the funding model, because as we heard, and we know already, what the budget was cut by. So I just want to ask this question because I was thinking, sitting here and think, if there was, like, for example, an agreement between our department and Cocktail. I just give an example, just give an example and say, if a municipality give for each 80 cents we give, they put in their budget 20 cents. Just give a 80-20 ratio, for example. Or even you do it like 1/3, 2/3. A municipality will think very seriously about it and think, now we must put money on our budget as a municipality, because for each rand we put in, the public works give us 2 rands. Then if I was a municipal manager and the mayor and the CFO, I would really tap into that. But then simultaneously with that, it's all about responsibility and accountability. The moment you put money in a project from your own funds on a municipal level, then control would be stricter, because it's not money just received. You form part of the budget that is funding this whole model. So I was wanting to say from the beginning that everybody is quite clear that I do support the project, but to be successful is all about control and coordination. Now I give you an example. If I'm driving in my constituency and I see the people on the road, that is EPW workers, there's normally one problem that municipalities do. Just to get it off them for work for the day, they must clean the streets. I see it. They must clean the pavements. So there's no, like, I know there's people that's illiterate, that maybe they fall in that category. But at the end of the day, we want to enhance people's skills as well. So I think the municipalities must buy one of these trucks that's clean the BSM, they must clean the streets and not the people. We must actually use them much more productively. Then, for example, I was in Prince Albert, a very small town, as like the Deputy Minister referred to small municipalities. Very interesting. In their museum, there are 2 EPWP workers working there, and they were working on computer skills, and they was putting everything in that museum, they was putting on a computer system and market and everything. That was fantastic, because at the end of the day, it's 2 different skills simultaneously. It's in museum and in otherwise IT they actually learn. So I think the funding model at the end of the day could contribute going forward to the coordination and strict controls. If the person that received the money, institution, municipality, whatever, if they're also part of the funding, then there's a difference in the way you approach it. You take it always very personally, I can tell you. If you personally take money out of your own pocket, it's like very easy. Then for something, you're more interested in it and you put controls from your side into it because you're part of it. Right, that's only remarks on that. I want to go to the page 11, and I just want to stuck with quickly with the word fair recruitment. That's where a serious problem lies in municipalities. I know there's manipulation by the political parties or the person in charge in the municipality with the recruitment process. As a fact, we don't have to go a bit around the bush because it's friends that get the necessary, or friends and families that get the job as an EPWP worker. Then I want to go to page 15. Very important to me, and I think the whole, I would say, vision must be actually at the end of the day for people to complete what they're doing to get certification. Otherwise, there's no use and there's no extras. Like people want to study after schools, and this is certification in something different, but also they haven't had the opportunity before, and the focus must be, and that's coming back to the remark, training between 2% and 5%. I know you said minimum of 2%. We must strive at least for more than 2% and try to implement it and increase it over years gradually, and say we move now from 2 to 2.5. The next year we move to 3% to eventually end up with the 5%, and that should be then the norm. Then I want to go the remark, the artisan training, agri-sector. Now, it's a comparison in a certain sense for me here with, we talk about the word dropout. 400 number of learners approved and dropout 86. That equates plus minus quickly if I make the sum to 22%. It's the same thing you've got in education. People at high school level at some stage, there's a dropout. And the first thing of the Minister of Education is to bring the students to matric. They must move on to that level. And will be interesting at what stage is the dropout in this whole process to get that info. Because I think if we can better on that level where the dropout starts, then the project in the long run would be also more successful, that we can identify exactly where the problem is with the dropout. Then I want to go to financial performance, integrated grant and social sector. There's only a little bit of humor here. The different percentages, you mentioned KwaZulu-Natal with 41%, but then Northern Cape 25%. You should have actually mentioned what is the problem in the Northern Cape with 20% expenditure as percentage of the allocation. That is quite worrying. Then move to the next one. Consequence management. You see, I've got always a problem with people that is a supervisor. You're either a leader and you see that the work is get done, or people would, as a supervisor, actually enjoying the group that's working for him, then he becomes part of the group and then nothing is done. And I'm not rude when I'm saying it, when I'm stopped next to a group of EPW workers and say, where's the supervisor? Now you get the answer. He's sitting in between them. He said, he didn't pitch today, sir, but meanwhile he's sitting with them. So there would be a clear difference when you actually appoint a person as a supervisor versus the rest of the group. And that is up to the people that do the appointments. So I just mentioned that because I've got experience driving in my constituency, and they know me by now. I stop and I ask questions. Right. Page 36, review of EPW grants going forward. Yeah, this is my very important page as well as the following page. I don't want to go in detail, otherwise the chair would say your time is up. But I think the combination of those few pages is quite important. And then I want to say the following. I want to respond to the Deputy Minister here about the road paving and pavements paved. Minister, sometimes by experience you learn something along the way. Now, in my constituency, the municipality did embark a lot of paving of pavements. But we experienced, and I'll be blunt now and a bit, that everybody understands, that's the reality of life. After a month, you come back, then if 100 bricks has been laid there, half of it's been stolen. If you drive around in the communities, I can see and I can point out whose driveways have been paid by the bricks have stolen from the municipality pavements. So we embark in our municipalities by tarring roads, and we're tarring pavements as well, because they don't cut it up and steal it. So I rather use that money for something different. There is different ways to use it, but the paving is beautiful, but eventually doesn't work because it looks awkward. When you drive, it's blocked, and the next block it's gone, and then there's another block being paved. But going back to the vision of the minister saying infrastructure, we must find a way to actually use EPW workers to enhance infrastructure development throughout South Africa. I've gotten a direct answer now, but we must all, as we sit collectively here, see the way forward. We can actually engage and see a brainstorming session, which way we can go forward with that. But Deputy Minister, the smaller municipalities have a problem with capacity, that's a truth. But as I explained, like a grade 2 municipality like Prince Albert, if they can do it well, all the others could do it well as well going forward. But the funding model at the end of the day is for me the most important. And I think if you can get buy-in co-fund, as you stipulated, from the private sector, but in this case, with intergovernment and interdepartments, COCTA and our department, I think there could be a success story going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Marek. Members, let me do this. Let's not focus on questions that we want to get responses from the department. Based on the fact that when you talk about municipalities, they can have a direct influence, but maybe how we should coin our concerns to the department, because we are the ones who must implement and monitor, is that it is very much important that your EPWP program as a national branch, you must then explain the role and standardize how you are going to settle or how you are going to manage, because there must be a uniform and a way out or throughout every province, every ward, every municipality, how you are going to allocate the beneficiary. If you look back, there's a problem. All of us, we are agreeing there's a problem how you allocate based on the remark that was made by the minister. It's you who must tell us, how are you planning to deal with the allocation, the standardized thing that you are going to develop or you have developed. It's you who need to tell us, how are you going to monitor the implementation in different municipalities across the country and its ward. So I want you members, let's focus on questioning the department as the implementer or the ones that are running this program. How are they going to close the gaps and the loopholes that we are observing? We can't even sit here and talk about if we were in the municipality, because it's not going to assist us. Let's not try to tap into that. And municipalities are not the same, even on their grid. You still have in South Africa a municipality that is an indigent municipality that can't even generate a revenue. So you can't expect them to pop something in while they can't even generate a single revenue. So on that one, let's not focus on the municipality, but we want to get an understanding your plans as the DPWI and IDT. How are you going to rectify what we are seeing? Bath, you can come in.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the department for the presentation. I must say we must commend the efforts that are being made to reform EPWP, although it's very clear from even just this week's listening tour that commenced that there are a number of issues that need to be addressed. So the first item that I'd like to bring forward is with regards to that, and I always like to try and ask the department what went wrong and where did things go wrong. And in terms of what's come out of the listening tour, just the first step of it You know, the issues of political patronage and corruption, limited skills development as an outcome, and failure to meet just the general community's needs. What has caused that, and are you taking those causes into consideration in the reform agenda for EPWP? The second question that I have is around the rationale of how grants are allocated to provinces, because if I have a look at the presentation, there's a really big variation between the different provinces, and I want to understand where those funds or how those funds are allocated, what the rationale is there. And then I noted also on the same presentation or the same slides that the provinces are measured, their performance is measured against what is spent. And my question is that really a good way of measuring performance? Should we not be looking at what are the tangible outcomes of these expenditures? It's not so much about how much money you spend, it's about what is the outcome of the money that's being spent, what is the difference that's being made. And I'm very glad that the head of data management, the director of data management is here, because it's something that I'd like to suggest that, you know, in terms of transparency and actually really seeing what the outcomes of the EPWP program are, I think we really need to look at, what those outcomes, what those tangible outcomes are, not just what the money is that is being spent. What is it being translated into? And then just one last one, Chair, is just a suggestion or another comment. Has the EPWP program ever had a look at using incarcerated members of the public and phasing them into the EPW program and using them to, for example, upgrade, maintain your correctional services facilities, your prisons, etc. Just, you know, putting them to use as well. And I think I'll just end there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and really commend the department on a very good presentation. I thought it gives us an idea of how EPWP performs from a department's perspective before we take it all the way down to municipalities. But I've got a few questions. I'd like to ask with regards to the performance targets. Just making a comment on that, all the performance targets are at 50 plus and below. So it makes it a little bit difficult to motivate for you to get more budget when the performance is so low. So we'd like to know from the department, why is the department at the performance at an average of 34%? It's not even meeting 50% in average. So it's just a little bit difficult when we speak about 700 million budget cut, but we can't then utilize the money to perform effectively. Then I'm going to speak about training opportunities versus work opportunities. And I saw that the social sector is able to match the training opportunities with the work opportunities. I find that we'll find that there is a skills deficit in terms of infrastructure, EPWP within DPWI, where you have massive work opportunities, but you're not matching that up with training opportunities. So you leave people out without training them when they exit. So that's a problem that you're not matching up. And then we talk about the ministers talked about collaborating with the private sector in order to reform this. Now, I'd just like to ask, what are sort of the incentives that the department is thinking of putting to the public sector to join? This is you said it's not a matter of, it's not a labor relations matter or an economic thing, but it is a social function, right? To sort of bridge the gap and assist people to get into midterm business, participation. But are we then maybe effectively using what we have sort of as a body that you're collaborating with CIDB, for example, to ensure that our companies are initiating social responsibility by actually absorbing these people and giving them a real chance at these opportunities. So maybe if you can include your entity, CIDB, and then maybe give them
so that the CIDB could grade companies better that are absorbing people who have been part of EPWP, so that in terms of their social responsibility, they are seen to be coming to the party and actually cooperating with public works and infrastructure. Now, with training, you said there's a high dropout rates. Have we considered what the issues could be? I know that it was in terms of passion, that maybe these people are not passionate, but also a large part of contributing factors of people not finishing socio-economic issues. So that's sort of around, especially in these areas where there's high poverty rates. Have we considered them? Do these people have allowances? Do they have money to go and eat at school? Sort of those are the kind of conditions, material conditions around the people who are attending these training. NSFAS is doing a great job. So maybe something like NSFAS to ensure that these people who are going to the training sessions are not going on a hungry stomach, but are attaining these qualifications. Also, reporting failure, it's a grave concern because there is then no transparency in the recruitment processes. You say you have like sort of information in terms of the contracts that are there and the information of people. However, you have not properly categorized them. If you have the details, why hasn't the department categorized them in terms of those who are in Purcell and those who are earning outside? Also, in terms of intergovernmental relations, I know that the minister has been doing a listening tour, but in terms of engaging with municipalities, what have you then deduced them and their like inability to sort of perform their functions and reporting that feeds into the department? Have you sort of engaged with municipalities? I understand that you have engaged with the public, but I'd like to know in terms of intergovernmental relations, how are we faring in that regard to ensure that EPWP runs smoothly all the way from national, all the way down to our municipalities? And lastly, I'd like to speak about the digitization and transformation agenda of the department. There is a need to digitize and really transform this department. And I commend you that you want to use a mobile app, but I'd like to understand with the mobile app that you're using, are we then going to depend on the participants to feed the information to us? And how are we then going to monitor and ensure that this is the correct kind of information? Thank you, that's all.
Thank you very much to the presenter, and good morning to everyone, ministers, DGs, DDGs, CEOs, all protocols observed. Minister, you were in Gauteng this week. And you were saying that you would want to either review this EPWP or discontinue it completely. Maybe you could share with the committee what your thoughts are around that process, so that we can have a better understanding. This whole notion of work opportunities is a separate
Babugama,
question. Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. Yourself, I'm sorry to interject you. I'll want to advise you to go straight to your questions. On the note that you have just raised, Minister has made an opening remark. He said he'll want us to assist him to get more funds, meaning he wants this program to continue. Maybe let's shelve it. I won't even allow you, Minister, to respond to that. Honorable Gama raised that you arrived late. He was not part when you started. Don't even attempt to respond to that. Two, DG, when the latter speaker spoke about digitalization, you are very bad. Your website, it's mixed up. So you are not even closer to go to digitalization. I'll also advise you not to respond on the issues of digitalization. until your website is very clear as a department. You may continue, Obgam.
I've lost my train of thought.
Mankosi, you might, I'll come back to you. Try to balance yourself. Mankosi, continue, then we'll come back.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to your good self, my colleagues, the Minister team and the team, as well as the support staff. Chair, let me join my colleagues by appreciating the presentation made by the department. Indeed, the presentation is well detailed and informative. And it really makes us to understand that indeed the extended public works, it's very much key to our people. Without the extended public works, I don't know what it's gonna happen to our people. Chairperson, the level of the budget to train people is high and requires participation for completing the training if there's to be a quality spend or getting value for money. Therefore, we'll request the department to make sure that they are having a plan to make sure that everybody is participating to avoid this dropout that is happening, because really it worries us. If you can see that in the provinces there are dropouts for these trainings. Another thing I just want to check with the department, the rationale behind for the budget cut by the National Treasury and the impact on the program that is happening. What is the impact on the program? My other question is to check with the department, because when you listen to the presentation, the success rate is very low for the Artisan program. I just want to check with the department as to say, how will they turn around the situation on that? Lastly, does the selection criteria for the program not need to be reviewed as government is spending a lot of funds and need people to complete their skilling program? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to everyone in the meeting. My colleagues, the Minister, the DM, and the officials as led by the DG. I would also want to welcome the presentation as presented into the meeting, which was interesting and also shed more light to us understanding the actual details that are happening with the process of EPWP. And I think I would want to also welcome the input made by the Minister and the Deputy Minister, which was also added to by the DDG that presented, in terms of agreeing that the program is needed and it's a big yes that it must continue, and they request support for it to continue. So what I want to check with them that participation to the program has got a duration, not sure whether it's 3 months or whatever, but I want to check, because of that short time, if it's 3 months, has the department thought about extending the span of this program perhaps to 6 or 12 months because of the need that is there and the kind of impact it is doing into the community out there? 2, how does the budget cuts and lack of funding that has been reported affect this program? And that whether the department is confident that they will raise enough resources to sustain the program without the fact that we should be supporting that you get more funding. The other question I have is that you spoke of a cooperation between yourselves and small business department in relation to qualified artisans. I want to check how strong are your relations with the department, ensuring that you continue to train these artisans so that they open small and medium enterprises. And how is your recruitment? I think one member has asked this question in terms of the dropouts. How is your recruitment process to ensure that you attract the right people? Because you might have a dropout that is a lot as reported, but in fact, there is no proper process that is ensuring that those interested that would not drop out are actually the ones that are conducted. And then Chair, on slide 12, the department had shown a reflection that there is a particular percentage that is required for youth, for women, and people living with disability as a target. And I did not see any reflection about men. My observation to that, it would be then a normal person or a citizen reading the document and would then say that EPWP does not accommodate men, as much as in the presentation along the way you have then said everybody is accommodated and is required to form part and benefit into the program. Is it a matter of emphasizing that women and the disability sector and youth is actually prioritized? Just want to on that. And the last question, Chair, is on the issue of the vocational training, which reflected a number of provinces and a number of beneficiaries that have actually benefited. And I think there was 2 provinces that had got high numbers in terms of beneficiation, which I as compared to others that have got 15. Is it a matter of budget that has been allocated to that province, or is it a matter of high interest of those that are supposed to be trained that are from those provinces? Because it doesn't actually give a good picture that other provinces have got more than 300 beneficiaries that are there. I just want to get that clarity so that I leave here having a clear understanding of what that slide meant. Thank you, Chair.
Mahlangu, honorable members, Mangosi, while you are going out, Nisheshen Bui, you have raised questions and even other members who are outside must start to come back. We don't want follow-ups unnecessary because you'll get a response and you did not hear what was said. Mahlangu.
Ngiyathokoza, thank you, Chair. And greetings to the Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and the team and honorable members present. Well, speaking numberlized, it might be difficult because you'll find that other members, they've touched your questions. But where there's also an emphasis that needs to be made. Well, Chair, the first question that I want to ask, I want to check the weaknesses, or rather say the challenges that the department has in coordinating this program of EPWP from the municipality and up until to the national. From up cascading down, I want to check challenges or weaknesses, rather say, that you have. And how do you intend to resolve them? Number 2, what are plans of making this program of EPWP not to fail? Number 3, because colleagues, they spoke of the budget. Well, I want to ask it in this angle. Why? Because we are speaking about the shortage of budget to skill people, but hence the budget has been cut. I want to check why was the budget was cut? Number two, how do we intend to solve it that in the next financial year is not cut? Another question. How our institutions or provinces are reporting to the department on the progress made, in particular in terms of the funding that the grant that has been given to them? How do they report to the department, and how do we monitor it? And if they failed at least to meet the target, what are remedial actions that normally are being taken by the department? On the issue of dropouts, also I want to ask the question in another angle because many spoke about it. I want to check whether the contracts of participant, there's no way where that is specified that if you have dropped out. For an example, Mila did a learnership that we did with the Department of Water when we were doing our trade test. There was a clause there that says if you are dropped out, you will owe the department. You have to pay that man. Then I want to check there's no clause there that if those who have dropped out, they must pay the department. Another question that I want to ask specifically, this one is for IDT. In the responsibility of the IDT, one of the responsibilities of the IDT is the one of social facilitation. I want to check how is the IDT making sure that the communities are benefiting from these projects? I'm not speaking about what mafia we normally speak about, but the fact of the matter is that projects that goes to the community needs to benefit the communities. In particular, in constructions, foreign officials, they benefit in the community. They work in those community projects without proper papers. How do we make sure as the IDT that those people who are working there, they have proper papers, they are South Africans, in particular in those sites? And how do we make sure that our community, they strictly benefit? The last one, Comrade Chair, it is the one, it's not the question, it's the comment. Because when the department speaks, normally there's a lot of eyes. I don't prefer that language because we are a collective, and we don't do things as individual. We must not individualize the work of the department. We must work as a collective. There were many eyes that were raised in particular from the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Babu Gama. You still have a chance if you want to come back. Are you?
No, I didn't lose my train of thought. I thought you would understand that it's inappropriate to interject when someone is speaking. The fact that I arrived late here, I reported that I'm going to be 20 minutes late coming into this meeting. So I don't need to delelo. Okay. If we look at the employment opportunities versus what you call the full-time employment, you convert these. Obviously, the fact that there's this program, I think it makes sense to a lot of the communities who are in need of jobs. But when you convert it, it shows that there's very little dent that we're actually doing given the high unemployment rate. that we have in this country. Is there other thoughts in terms of how we could accelerate other infrastructure programs so that we could absorb more and more people into employment? Because as things stand, we are sitting at 32.6% unemployment in the country. It's been getting worse, and the Gini coefficient of 0.67 says that South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. And as an infrastructure department, I know you talk about 5 million in the 5-year program, but those are work opportunities. They are not full-time opportunities. I saw that the Deputy Minister of COGTA talked about 4 million jobs as well that would be created, but it's not clear how those, where those would come from. So I'm just asking the department, in terms of your other infrastructure projects, you could probably create and increase more jobs if you accelerated some of the infrastructure programs. But also the rate at which you can accelerate is also dependent on things like environmental impact assessments and things like that. How do you hope to collaborate with other departments in order for you to be able to do your work much more effectively and much more efficiently? Thank you.
Honorable members, colleagues, with powers invested in me by yourselves on my right-hand side, through your nomination on the first day, I'm the chairperson. And my role is also to guide you. Here in a meeting, I'm gonna put it straight. Akuna kudelelana la. And no one must succumb to anyone, but we need to have a principle why we are here. The principle is that we're going to deal with the matter that is on the agenda, finish and clear, and deal with service delivery issues. There's no one who's underneath anyone. It's just that you gave me powers through your nomination to be the chair and allow me to chair. No one is going to intimidate anyone here. But one thing that I want to say is that when you are late, I'll give you a direction, not bring other issues that are not in the agenda, but you must focus on the day's agenda. When the minister started, has given us his input. So I had to direct to, minister said this. We are not going to entertain whatever that he said on the media. It's not on the agenda of the day. So I have a role to give you a direction. But when you start to tell me, Delela, I'm a human being. So secondly is that when you are late, you must allow to be guided. And if you don't allow us to guide you, you want to take this meeting to a different direction. We accept your apologies, we accept your late coming because you've got other roles to attend to. But when we guide you, don't take it personal. It is my role to assist and direct. And when you take it personal, now I'm gonna go to personal, but I'm not going to allow the meeting to take a different form because we must maintain the decorum of the meeting. So I'm going to allow Ushrape to have a bite before we could request the minister and the team to respond to other questions. Ushrape?
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, DDG, officials and members. I think one of the most important things for us is actually for us to get as a committee to always be on top of what's going on with EPWP. The committee does oversight over you as a team that drives and leads a very important department. Your department is a coordinating department. The challenges that we have is indeed in coordinating the three spheres. And so from what I picked up in the presentation, Chairperson and members, some of the most important stuff that have been shared here, I'm happy to say they came out. There's a recognition that everyone, wards in municipalities, provinces, and where departments are running some EPWP programs, when beneficiaries are allocated, it is not done according to your uniform standards. I'm aware of the fact that you have uniform standards. Your challenge is, how do you enforce it? And perhaps in your responses, you can just deal with that for a bit with members. The second thing I want to say is you are selling yourself short. There are very successful training programs and success stories in our country around EPWP. There are people who came out and remain employed because of qualifications that they got. And I think it's perhaps important. We've got a big venue here, but even this venue will not be big enough for you to bring all those people to us over the years since EPWP started. I think one of those things must come out, because this is not just a meeting that stays in this room. The meeting is South Africa's meeting. And the importance of you coordinating has to do with set the standard, but find a way of enforcing it. And I think one of the members brought something to you today. The issue of incentivizing people on the ground to follow your uniform standards and your regulations is important. Rather than having the stick hitting and taking money away or taking things away from them, incentivize by saying you give so much and then you're going to look after your portion and therefore participate in it. So I think there has been good things coming from the committee with you. And I think, Chairperson, we can applaud ourselves as a collective here for actually cooperating with one another rather than just hitting heads. Hitting heads are fine, but I think today we actually see an example of cooperation. I think we will, just as a committee, also want to bring you back actually to speak a bit more about those two components, especially the enterprise development portion. The training, yes, but the enterprise one. And then I want to say also, Chairperson, as a committee, we may perhaps bring the Minister of Labor, Education, and Higher Education and Training into a room. Because I think there is not a sufficient understanding, not evident from our side and from South African side, I think, about your powers of coordination as EPWP. Chair, thank you. That's about it.
Thank you. Maybe lastly, I'll direct my question to IDT. IDT, what we need to take us into confidence as an implementing agency, do we have a standardized regulation for all the three spheres to implement the program? And try to explain how you're going to ensure that all municipalities, provinces, and the department follow these regulations, as well as if they don't follow it up, as you are an implementing agency, how are you going to force them to follow it? I think it is relevant to yourself together when you talk to the department and yourself, you need to talk about enforcing the regulation and following it up. Minister, I'll allow you and your team to respond. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'll save my comments for last to round up if that's all right, but I'll let the DG go, DM, and anyone else, then I'll save the comments for last.
Honorable Chair, thank you very much. I've done a lot of talking, but I will request, Chair, that we first give an opportunity to our colleagues. They can't be flying to Pretoria, from Pretoria to Cape Town for nothing. We will do the following, Honorable Chair. Director Finance, Mr. Kopano will deal with the matters that relate to everything around the EPWP incentive grant per province and municipalities, and questions that has to do with how do we deal with the issue of grant integration and which direction are we taking. So all those financial issues. After him, it will be Ms. Maluleke, who will deal with issues around us working with IDT, as well as issues that relate to data management and data collection. And then I'll come after that. Thank you, in that order.
Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members, for giving me this opportunity to respond to some of these questions. With regards to the question about the combination of conditional grants, as to whether the department is confident that will work. As a department, we think it will work because currently how it is, we've got 2 provincial conditional grants. In those grants, there are departments that are receiving the grant from both grants. So I think if we combined the grants to be one, we will have fewer number of departments receiving the grant, but everyone will be receiving. And that will reduce, it will reduce the administrative burden both on the departments receiving the grants as well as the transferring department as a DPWI. There's a question about why there's a poor spending in provinces like Northern Cape. I think Northwest as well. Poor spending is mainly attributed to the delays in starting the implementation of projects. However, there are some public bodies that are planning their projects to start somewhere mid-year. So if the project is planned maybe to start within the 3 months of the financial year, the financial performance will be seen after the project have started. However, as a department, we are continuously engaging with the public bodies to ensure that they report their expenditure timeously as well as the related work opportunities. The question around the budget cuts, it is a critical one. The budget cut was imposed during the adjustments in the last financial year. That was for the over MTF period. As a department, we engaged the National Treasury extensively, trying to demonstrate what the budget cuts will do to the program. The budget cuts have a negative impact on the program because this means there will be number of work opportunities that we will be losing. Approximately, we will be losing about 145 work opportunities because of these budget cuts. This is over the medium-term period, which will translate to about 70 full-time equivalents. The National Treasury has indicated that one of the reasons is because of the budget pressure. However, the decision was taken by Cabinet to implement budget cuts across all grants. We wrote the letter to the National Treasury, a detailed letter citing the areas of negative impact that will come because of these budget cuts. We did not win as a department because the cuts were implemented. As to what will we do in future to ensure that there's no budget cuts, it is a difficult one which I think we don't have much control over it, but we would like a support from the portfolio committee in trying to demonstrate that this program is so important that we cannot have the budget cuts on it, especially that we all know that the unemployment is continuously going up. Yeah, I think there was also a question around why other provinces are receiving higher allocation than others. That is as a result of the model that is being used to allocate a budget to public bodies. The model is that the allocation is based on number of full-time equivalents that each provincial departments and municipalities are creating and reporting. So this means that the provincial departments that created most work opportunities and full-time equivalents are likely to receive higher allocation. They are able to create more because they are not dependent on the conditional grant that we are transferring to them, but they are also allocating a significant budget to ensure that they increase number of EPWP participants. Thank you very much.
Greetings to you, Honorable Chair, the Minister of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, committee members, and all protocols observed. The Chairperson, I'm going to focus or reflect on questions relating to the performance of the program. And in doing so, I'll also respond to a question which was raised related to the assets and services created within the program. And lastly, the mobile application. Chair, if I can reflect to the presentation which was made by the DDG in slide number 13, you will note, Chair, that the performance the DDG has presented is for the first quarter of the financial year. The program achieved 34% in the first 3 months of the financial year against the 1,004,000 work opportunity target, which implies that the program is doing well. I think I would say that we have started phase 5 rather on a good note. The second quarter performance was officially released yesterday, and the performance for the second quarter is at 70%. So we are doing quite well, Chairperson. There is no shortfall in terms of achieving the first and the second quarter targets of the EPWP program. And I think we are on a good note to achieve the annual target of 1,004,746 work opportunities. Where there is non-achievement of targets, the department does intervene through the data capturers which have been appointed, and also the new cohort which we have appointed to verify the information reported in the system. So we have put measures in place as a department to ensure that we do achieve the targets or even exceed the targets that have been set for the program. In terms of the assets and services, Chair, yes, I think it's a good question and it's very important for us as well. It's one of a key indicator that we do measure. We have advanced the system to not only focus on the number of work opportunities created, but we would also interested in the assets and the services created through those work opportunities. So we do have information on the assets created across all sectors, from the environment and culture sector, infrastructure sector, the social sector, as well as the non-state sector. The information is available, Chair. So it is an important indicator for us as well. We do track the assets which have been created through the program. And lastly, relating to the mobile application, I think there was an interest to know on how the mobile app is going to work, Chair. We have decided to improve the quality of the information reported in the system, not only in terms of the numbers, but also the reliability of the information which has been reported. We want to ascertain that the work opportunities which have been created and reported in the system are indeed of those individuals who are working on site. Now, what we have done to advance the system is to create a facial recognition biometrics app. It's a mobile application, and the reason why we decided to go on mobile is because we wanted to cut costs in terms of infrastructure. I know there are more advanced biometrics application where you would require expensive infrastructure, but due to budgetary constraints, we opted for the mobile application. We are currently in a testing. We were on site recently, and we are still continuing to test the application on site. And so far, we have been successful. We want to believe that by the 1st of April in the new financial year, we will be able to roll it out at least to one of the most important programs in the department, which is the NPO and the DPWI implemented projects. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, for me, I remain to deal with, I think, 2 or 3 things. One that relates to training, dropouts. Maybe let me not start with the dropouts. Let me start with the question that talks to certain provinces having more numbers than the others. It goes to the question and the response that was done by Director Finance. Other provinces decide to put more money into what we do, and then it gives them more numbers. So when we interact with a National Skills Fund, they are also able to produce more numbers and be responsive in terms of putting forward the participants that are ready and willing to be part of the program. Hence, then you'll find that certain provinces will have more numbers than others. On the dropouts, I think Honorable Marais, you did an analogy that talks to what happens between in the Department of Education in terms of dropouts. What the exercise we are going to do is that certain people are taken into the program simply because they are part of the program. They are taken into training program, yet they have no passion. All that they are in there for is to get this cash so that they put food on the table. So we need then as a department to look into that and see as to whether we're putting the right person who has interest. We have not been talking to participants. We have been putting them in there into training because they were selected for the program, but they are in the program for different reasons. And therefore that is critical for us to deal with. The other area that makes dropouts is that in EPWP, I think it was Honorable Mahlangu, if I'm not mistaken, who was talking about whether if you have been in the training and then you drop out, you pay back. We don't have that clause because we are dealing with the poor, rest of the poor here. So therefore, they drop out and then we remain behind with that gap. What then also happens is that as we have participants and they are part of training, if they get employment somewhere else, he's employed, he was living in Eastern Cape, he's got employment in KZN, they pack and go the following day and they leave because they have employment somewhere else, and therefore you remain with the dropout. We have not done a proper analysis. I think we take note on what the portfolio committee is saying of going back and doing a proper analysis in terms of why and where exactly these dropouts happen and be able to report to the portfolio committee. Lastly, I want to comment on Jensen of the portfolio committee around the issue of who we are as EPWP. In the main, we're dealing with coordination. I still have to brief the minister properly in terms of what we are faced with now. There is currently an exercise that is being done between the officials in the presidency and the officials in treasury, where jointly they are doing assessment of PPEs, public employment programs. Towards the end of phase 4, there was some sort of an exercise that was happening. I joined the department around November 2023, and there was a strong view and a feeling from the officials in those sections that the coordination function of EPWP must move from DPWI to presidents. Now, I'm not preempting what this exercise is going to do. I have not yet briefed the minister properly. There is an exercise that is going on. It has GTEC in it, representing treasury. It has presidency, and they are looking at a new way in which public employment program must be coordinated. To me, it rings a bell that says there might be officials that would be keen to see coordination of public employment program happening somewhere else, and DPWI on EPWP also reporting there, but lose the status of coordination. We will properly brief the executive and would also, through the executive, keep the portfolio committee informed so that we are able to deal with those particular issues that might affect the program of EPWP. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chair and members of the committee, Minister and Deputy Minister and the DG and my colleagues, good morning. I will touch on the question raised by Honorable Mahlangu on the social facilitation. With regards to social facilitation, Honorable Mahlangu, when we go into the communities, we engage the members of the communities themselves where meetings are called. And we request that a community liaison officer is appointed within that particular community, which will ensure that communication flows properly between the community members and officials of the IDT and the staff of the department. And where appropriate as well, we engage the ward councillors and the traditional councils of that particular community. And we also raise an issue as well with whether the documents are properly vetted. So we use the reporting system of the Department of Public Works, which is linked to the Department of Home Affairs. So as we upload their ID documents, they are then being picked up by Home Affairs, whether the documents are proper or not. But we ensure that even the employment is within members of that particular community, so that it's only the community that benefits from the project. And then there was a question from the Honorable Chair on whether we have standardized regulation on implementation of this program. Chair, the role of IDT is with regards to the appointment of the NPOs, where we implement the non-state sector part of the EPWP. And in the implementation, we use the norms and standards of the department and also the framework that is provided by the Public Works in line with the MOU that we sign with the department. It is something that at IDT will then discuss with the department in terms of the standardized regulation on implementing the program. But as the acting DDG has said, that we are assisting them with the review to check where are the gaps and where we can improve. And it will be something that we will also look into, Chair. And maybe the last comment from my side, Chair, will be on the issue of the budget cuts and the implications. So in the implementation of the non-state sector, it affected the number of NPOs that we could appoint because of the budget cut. So we could not increase, but the effect was that we had then focused on decreasing the NPO so that it is in line with the budget that is allocated for this particular financial year, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson, members of Parliament. I think there are about 66 questions. I think they've been clubbed into categories. It looks like they've been all answered, but I think let me just touch on the ones that I think can be just elevated. There was an issue around the consideration of incarcerated members of the community. I think that is one area that we can look into, but just to cite an issue there, some of them, for instance, who are incarcerated, but they find that they are not in a prison set up there, but they're with the community. You find that if they are repeat offenders, they might have, for instance, a criminal record and things like that. There could be issues there. So I think we need to maybe come back to the committee in terms of that particular area. And then the other issue, which I think was raised by Honorable Maurice, the issue of consequence management. I do believe that the advantage you might be having is the fact that with this listening campaign or the listening to of the minister, some of the things you might not really know until you really interact directly with the communities, where you find people saying things that you might have understood differently from the way we get reports. So I think this campaign will assist in terms of sometimes unearthing and also monitoring. When I say monitoring, I mean, the directed monitoring, not necessarily that you're gonna wait for instance, the minister or deputy minister to go there. I think it will actually help that in terms of who is the supervisor and all those issues. I do believe it can help. And then the issue that was raised around the the incentives that might be considered for private sector to participate. I like the idea that Honorable Kobe raised to say, because it's part of their social responsibility, we might actually tap into that. I think Mr. Tongo is working on that. I think the big issue that I think is more to be focused on is the issue of engaging the departments like Department of Labor, which I can just indicate as we speak that they've got quite a lot of money around training and especially the UIF that might not actually be used. So I'm happy that we've done an application which Mr. Tongo presented on where we're looking at about over 22,000. So luckily we've engaged with them. So I think we need to probably encourage the pushing of that arrangement to get more support in respect of training, because in their case, theirs is to train people with an opportunity to work so that they can continue to get their UIF, which is the insurance that they use to support all this program. I think other than that, I do appreciate what also Mr. Kama raises around the issue of using other aspects of infrastructure development to look at other opportunities. I'll just cite one example that we used, particularly where I come from. There was a time when there was this infrastructure support grant, ISG, where you get graduates that are trained, paid for via a National Treasury. So what we have done there, just as an example, it's a simple thing of cleaning, if you like, your stormwater drains. So the way we crafted the contracts in Umhlatuze, there's a place called Umhlatuze in Richards Bay. It was just a total of 13 contractors that we had to appoint across the city. Vis-a-vis, there was one contractor before that we had that only had a TLP and a few people, and that contractor was taking most of the money. So what we then did, we took that contract, we packaged it in a manner that gave us 13 contracts. And then in that 13 contracts, what we then did, we then segmented each contract to say, contractor A, you have to appoint a minimum of so many people in respect. And we even, in that respect, put a salary cap, because we didn't want to fight with, if you like, the labor department. So in that respect, from 13 contracts, we managed to create about 113 jobs over the 36 months period. But how that worked, it had to be something that we engage with National Treasury in terms of how we then structure those contracts. I think what Mr. Kama is saying is something that we're already looking into. For instance, when you award a contractor, for instance, a 800 million rand job, we might have said to him, it's going to take 3 years for you to construct, for instance, the High Court, but we might not dictate specifically how many he's going to put in, except to say subcontract. So maybe that element can actually create, not only in public works, but across all infrastructure development projects. I think we take that very much in the view. Thank you very much. I think we'll leave to the ministers.
Before executives, members, do you have a follow-up? I'm doing this deliberately. I want executive to wrap up, because you might have a follow-up that needs technocrats to respond, and it can be proper for them to respond after the executives. Babu Nyumalo, Mare, you may start. Oh, okay, it's Honorable Mare Makasi, and you'll be the last one. Are you? Yes. It must not be new questions, members. It's a follow-up. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I could be very quick in life. I just want to make a quick remark, because you also make a remark as Chair about the most smallest municipalities indigent. We also here as portfolio committees to make solutions put on the table. and then at the end of the day, create something more possible and workable. I think most of this portfolio committees, not all, support the project. Just want to put it that straightforward. And if I make the remark and say that municipalities also should contribute a portion to this whole thing, then there's buy-in. Then the solution would be working on a sliding scale. Grade 1 and 2 municipalities, you must contribute 10% and we will contribute 90%. Grade 3 and 4, a next sliding scale. Then there's a big jump to a grade 5 municipality and even a bigger jump to a grade 6 municipality. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Chair, it's not a follow-up question per se, but based on the response they gave on the question asked by Honorable Mahlangu on the issue of the dropouts and the advice that he has given, I think the department should begin to look at that clause to be inserted, because in other programs that are out there that are also linked to EPWP in certain provinces, that works out well, where it gives a commitment to the participant that if they drop out, there is a catch or there is a penalty to pay. So know that because of people are poor, you would want to fork out money from them because of the stipend that they get. And it won't be something that a person would just go there for money, but also the commitment of also knowing that they are also preventing those that would be able to go through with the program and also finish it and not necessarily close the space and the gap there. So the department must just think of inserting that clause so that it gets to be documented, that those participants would know that we are not there to allow them to waste money of the government that is available to all South Africans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I need to apologize for being late. I had an unfortunate situation that I had to attend to. Mine is also on the issue of the dropouts. Does the department have the figures as to how much does it cost the department in terms of, how much does it cost the department with regards to those people who have dropped out of that learning program? Do they have the figures, or do they have anything to show as to, so that the reason why I'm asking this question, or I'm raising this issue, it's because it's very important for the public to know as to how much are they wasting, because at the end of the day, we need to have a responsible people, responsible citizens. We cannot allow a situation whereby monies are being used and then have no results, that we don't get the results for those monies that have been used. And lastly, on the issue of the small business department, is it still a proposal that they are going to participate in your programs, or it's ongoing? Those are two things that I need to find out. Are they involved? And if they're involved, up to what level are they involved? Thank you.
DDG, you may respond then later. I think even the executive was going to handle all those follow-ups. But if you feel you may start, then the two executive will have to follow. But I think they have responses.
No,
just proceed.
No, thank you, Chair. It's a quick one that I'll deal with on the dropouts and the cost. There is no money that we will lose because there were dropouts. This is the National Skills Fund budget. Once there's a dropout, that money gets allocated to other short-term programs within the framework of the National Skills Fund. So it's not a matter of saying that there's money that we've issued and then we lose it because there was a dropout. But indeed, we can't for now give you the exact statistics. That's the exercise we're going to do, to say when do they drop out, what are the reasons, and what are the costs. But we do not lose any money because we are able to redirect funding with the National Skills Fund to go to short courses. Thank you.
No, thanks. Let me start on this issue of dropouts. While I agree with acting DDG, but you would have lost the money that maybe a person would have been trained for a week, supposed to do 2 weeks. But let's understand there are areas where you begin to have these trainings, like artisans and all of that. And the suggestion by Honorable Mahlangu and Makasi, supported by Numalo now, are correct. We must have a clause that tie these beneficiaries. But at a lower skills level, it will be impossible to do that. Because these are people who comes in just to clean the road, do this, and then the next day they get an employment somewhere as DTG said, then they leave. But once you get into these certified courses or accredited courses, it will be important to take the route that is suggested. The issue raised by Honorable Lelange about budget cuts and number of members raised. This is not only the program that faced budget cuts. This is not also the only department that suffered budget cuts. These are budget cuts because of the budget of the state as a whole. The fact that there is a shrinking revenue in the state for a number of reasons. So that's why we got this program also affected. Now, let me then move to Honorable Marais. I have seen this program of bricks paving, changing the landscape in many areas. You talk of Zwelicha in Kokstad, you talk of Emalahleni in Eastern Cape under Krisani. You talk of Tzanini. I was in Tzanini some few weeks. I haven't had an experience where people will go with to take out the bricks. No, I haven't. It might mean you've got very hardcore criminals in that locality, because when this thing is done, you get engineers who will work with the team, supervising. Even the way you put it, you don't just put, it is put systematically, and there will always be concrete on the side, and it will keep very intact. It also increases labor because it's intensive. Honorable, but thanks, but there is one thing that I will request all of us to understand. Public works, expanded public works, if you will remember in 2004, it was firstly implemented by the Department of Transport in KZN before 2004 as community project, where there was a program of Zibambele under the then MEC Ndebele. Then a concept was then elevated. You have a situation where you've got people who are poor. These people don't belong to get the grant, the social grant. You can't give them the old age or what. And at that time, there were no 350. So the concept was that give these people something to cushion them. They will work 3 times a week, then they will earn, but they must then be trained. When it was then elevated to national, then the element of training came in to say, let them work for this particular period and exit. So you can't take incarcerated people for this. The concept, it doesn't allow that. Then if you go to, I think we must take the concept, the funding that Honorable Marais is bringing, that even if it's 10%, so that they have a commitment, the municipalities must have a commitment. That is a good suggestion, because, people get more involved where they pay. And I think that's a suggestion we have to take. Honorable Kobe, the issue of private sector participation. We engage private sector to come on board, not to fund us, but to help communities. For instance, we have a community in Bergville. They were doing cleaning in the town and they were about to exit. Now we said, okay, what's the process? Let them be trained. Let them be formed into a co-op, be trained. We then said, let's engage again to buy them the machine to do recycling. I then said, let us get a recycling facility. We said, let's get a recycling facility that was assisted by the late Minister Molewa in Newcastle. We then said, come and mentor these people, they are new. So the private sector comes in that way. You've got these private guys who are in recycling, they are coming with skills. You've got NKN coming in with equipment. Then it becomes an effective partnership for the exit. I think, Honorable Gama, we take the point on the work on infrastructure. But I must say, through Infrastructure South Africa, issues of EIAs and all requirements of that nature are now getting resolved easy. Foreigners, Honorable Maslango, are not mostly in this program because the employment is localized. So you will not have a threat of foreigners. The threat that you really have, it's ghost employees. That's a real thing that affects this program, ghost employees, because people, whether they are councillors or whoever, will just collect IDs and then want to claim money out of that. Whether you talk of environment or where, the problem is ghost employees, which is literally corruption and need to be dealt with. And I think the minister referred to that earlier. But I must concur, Chair, we are also here not because we are perfect. We are here also to take from ideas in the collective, and we are prepared to take that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members, for the inputs. And indeed, I echo the Deputy Minister's words that we're here to learn and to collaborate. I do want to sound one warning, if I can, Chair, and to the committee. And what the DDG earlier said should be listened to very carefully. If there was a move or a discussion that is taking place currently, or a thought that is being floated, that EPWP should be moved into the presidency under the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, that would spell disaster for millions of unemployed, unskilled South Africans. It should be resisted at all costs, because we cannot equate people who are doing low-skilled jobs, who have the ability to upskill over time, to become teachers' assistants or to become clinic assistants, etc. That would spell disaster. And I think it is something that, regardless of our political affiliations, we should be united in keeping the concept and the proposal and the structure of EPWP and what it represents for millions of unskilled, poor South Africans. Let me say, I mean, honourable members, I'll just try and touch on some of the points. We also have to realize that for as long as we have a stagnating economy, budget cuts are going to continually take place. So we have to do everything that we can to grow the economy, to do away with what doesn't work, and to implement what can work to grow our economy if we want to increase budget allocations into any department, but more importantly into ours, to be able to do the work that we do. I fully support the idea around more vigorous criteria on selection to avoid dropouts, as well as having a partnership and funding commitment from municipalities into this program. Because what we've seen, honourable members, and I hate to use my hometown as an example in eThekwini, where I think 100 million rand or so was made available to that municipality, DDG you'll recall. Then the municipality had topped up on top of that, but then had to withdraw that and then wanted to blame us for not being able to for the funding shortfall that they had created. So I think that there's got to be an upfront position of what is your contribution, what is our contribution, and that contribution is followed through for a 3-year period at an absolute minimum. I also think that we've got to become more transparent in the way that appointments are made. Now, you know, in the age of technology and, you know, the ability to become smarter in the way that we work, I think that there's a place that, you know, more and more South Africans are getting access to the internet or to phones, that you should be able to get an SMS to say, Mr. McPherson, you have been qualified for the to the EPWP program, please report to your office, instead of giving it and putting it into the hands of people who can abuse it for their own means. We've got to get into a lottery-based system that gives true fairness and true opportunity to people, and it also stops people repeatedly going onto the program, which we have often heard about, because that takes opportunity away from others who have never had the chance to be on the program in the first place. I also think that we need to be able to move into a space of having dashboards that the public, the country can see, that per province, per town, and per ward, you're able to see what EPWP opportunities are currently underway, what budget has been spent, and what the matrix is of progress to ensure completion. Obviously, training remains, I think, the key pillar, and that's what we said, is we want training and opportunity to become the key pillar of this program, so that people leave better off than when they first arrived. I had a story of someone who's been in EPWP for 10 years. I don't know, firstly, how that is possible, but they were in EPWP for 10 years. That is not a life of dignity. Being paid 120 Rand a day for 10 years is not a life of dignity. And it's something that we should consider. We absolutely are working, Honorable Kobe, with municipalities on the listening tour. That's why all the mayors, executive mayors are invited, and the executive mayor of Gqeberha was with us, and we had some honest and frank discussions around how EPWP is not being optimally used, and they were able to hear exactly what I heard as well. You know, Chair, the question about extending the length of the program or paying more it's theoretically possible, but it would fundamentally change the nature of the program to become more full-time and more subjected to the minimum wage. Now, that's a conversation we should have, but again, that requires more money if we want to extend the length of time that individuals are in the program or able to earn more. And I think that this is where the partnerships with private sectors can come in. Let me say, I do have to say this because it's an important point that goes on record, that no one has said that EPWP is going to be phased out or done away with. We can't say we want to reform it and do away with it. Both can't be true, Honorable Gama. And so I would ask you to please be assured and to please be on record that no one has said that we are going to get rid of EPWP. It doesn't exist. I do agree with you on accelerating infrastructure projects to absorb more people, but there again, we need a growing economy to do so, and we need to be able to work with the private sector to be able to leverage in more money into our 4.5 trillion Rand infrastructure projects, or the full pipeline across the country. But that's going to require also, you know, major reforms in SOEs. We have too many SOEs that are a handbrake on our economy instead of a booster rocket for it. And so, you know, we really are looking forward to reforms in important SOEs. We've seen what that's done for our electricity production in the country by reforming that. I think it's now time to turn our attention to Transnet and to turbocharge that SOE into our country. I do also want to make this point, is that I think we also fundamentally need to look at the codes of good practice for EPWP. It was last gazetted in 2011, and there it looks at conditions, at work hours, etc. And so it's fundamentally important that we also look at updating those codes so that they are more in line with 2024. Honorable Chair, let me close in saying this, that I think that we cannot take away that EPWP has done a lot of good for a lot of people in this country. It's now time to take it to the next level to see what more it can do in a space that provides more skills, more opportunities, and becomes a hand up and not just a hand out. And we are committed to doing that as a department. And as we start to work through those plans and programs, we will of course present them to the department. But I do ask, Chair, with your indulgence, that we stand united against any attempt to absorb EPWP into any other department, forum, or structure that would lose its core fundamental mandate, which is to assist poor, unskilled South Africans to be able to get through during difficult and hard times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me take this opportunity and appreciate all of us with the spirit of all of us joining hands in defense of the program. Let it be so in all other presentations. I hope this is the start of all the presentation, Minister and the DG, that you are going to bring. We're going to work together. Yes, even when we started, we said we are going to assist each other. It's not you and us, but it's us together. We'll have to move forward and assist each other to deliver the services that South Africans are supposed to get. So with these few words, honorable members and yourself, the next item it's gonna be done by Nola, and we'll want to say to the department led by the minister, you feel free to be excused. If you want to remain, you can remain. There's nothing secret, but you can be excused. Very fast, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe before the department leaves, I think it would be good for us as a committee to thank them and acknowledge them for, we have seen that they're trying to establish the board for villages. I think that's a step in the right direction, and it speaks to the legacy that we are also trying to leave as a portfolio committee. So maybe well done on that.
While they are moving out, Nola, proceed. We are behind with time, but I think we'll make it, we'll manage.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The minutes of the meeting that was held on the 18th of September, 2024 are the minutes that are before the committee for consideration and adoption today. Chair, I'm not going to go line by line through the minutes because the minutes were already sent through to the members well in time. I'll just go through what the agenda of the day was and go through the attendance as well as the resolutions of the day. So the meeting was basically the AG's office, which came through to introduce itself to the committee, introduced the mandate and the trends that they've noticed as they were doing their audits on the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So, Honorable Chair, there was quite a number of apologies. We had about 5 apologies from main members and some, oh, I see, okay. And some alternates of the committee. So, Chair, on the resolutions, there was actually one resolution which reads as follows: having deliberated on all the presentations and as per the department's responses could not all be heard due to time constraints, the committee resolved that the PMTE must submit all other responses in writing within 7 days from the meeting date. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to highlight that I was present in that meeting on the 18th. Visvin Reddy also was there. So if those can just be corrected and perhaps colleagues can just double check that the attendance is correctly reflected. Thank you, Chair.
I move for adoption with, yes.
I second, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. The following matter before the committee is the consideration and adoption of the third term program of the committee. Honorable members, you may be aware that there's been a change in the parliamentary program that then meant that we had to also consider changing our own program as the committee. And the changes are then as follows. We're supposed to have a meeting on the 6th of November, that is next week, but that's been now had to be postponed because of the constituency week. That item, honorable members, has had to be taken off the program for this year. It'll then be reconsidered for next year because there's really no other time because there are also competing priorities. Then on the 13th of November, which is the week following that, we'll have a briefing by the DPWI, DBSA, as well as Parliament on the status quo regarding the project of the rebuilding of the National Assembly, as well as the Old Assembly. With this, Honorable Chair, we've had responses from one, the Office of the Chairperson of the NCOP. She's unable to attend that meeting because she'll be attending the Pan-African Parliament sitting on the day. We haven't heard anything from the Speaker's office, and neither have we heard anything from the Office of the Secretary of Parliament. It was just an acknowledgement of receipt of our letter. However, we have been trying to liaise with them. In terms of confirmation, we have heard nothing. But the meeting is still on the cards for that. And with that, we will also try to consider and adopt the 2023-24 BRRR of the committee. As you know, that it had to be postponed because the minister had not tabled. So we're hoping that he would have tabled by tomorrow or any other day from this week, because on the letter, the minister had actually committed to table at least by the 30th of October, which is today. They will be followed, that program will be followed by the George Oversight visit, which we have submitted an application for from the House Chairperson. We're just awaiting the final confirmation because we've just reworked the financials this morning. So we're hoping that by the end of this week, we should know better in terms of what is exactly happening. And you know, honorable members, this was also changed because there has been a committee week that's been inserted, which is now running from the 18th until the 23rd of November. So our program in George will take place on the 18th to the 19th of November. So members will be traveling on the 17th and coming back on the 20th. Honorable members, we were supposed to have a meeting on the 20th with the GRC branch of the department that have spoken about the corruption allegations and all of those things with the SIU, but we've had to then, because we'll be traveling back from George, hopefully we get approved. So we've had to move that meeting to the 21st rather, because we can utilize all that week for all our committee work. So that's why the meeting will then be on the 21st. And then on the 22nd, we thought we should also schedule the capacity building workshop feedback session that we had for the 15th of November, and now the 15th has now been allocated to a house sitting. So that then the program will take place on that day, and then we'll also consider and adopt both our reports from Gauteng, the capacity building, as well as the oversight visit. On the 27th of November, honorable members will have a briefing by the DPWI and PMTE on their 24-25 first quarter performance. I think we may as well we'll just check with the department if they're ready with the second quarter as well. Maybe we could merge those two so that they can just present on first and second. On our very last week, honorable members, we envisage to embark on an oversight visit to the Eastern Cape, where we'll be looking at the EPWP, small harbour development in Port St. John's, as well as the Mthatha Court project. So the focus is more on the upper side of the Eastern Cape, Mthatha and Port St. John's. And we have also liaised with the department for them to give us a brief synopsis of what the projects entail that have pinpointed, how far the Mthatha project is regarding the court and all of that. And then we'll check with the Port St. John's small harbour development as well, and piggyback on the information that we got today for EPWP. That'll be all from my side, Honorable Chair.
Members, there's an adjustment of the third quarter program. It's just a program. And bear in mind, George and oversight subject to approval by the chair of chairs. So if we can't get approval, we'll have to come back on the 20th and have our physical meeting, but if we are approved, let's allow it to proceed the way she presented it, so it must not be a surprise. Honorable members, I saw Honorable Marais.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the record, changes come as circumstances changed. I just want to mention, if been approved, the oversight visit to George, that I can only join early Monday morning. There's a flight 7:15, Cape Town, George. It's 45 minutes flight. I could be there at 8 o'clock in George, and that the arrangements must be such. I just wanted to note it at this meeting. Thank you very much.
I think it's proper, but Stavin, did you get that? Did you get what Honorable Marais said? Honorable Bart?
The request was for the flight to be the Monday morning flight to George for Honorable Marais. Chairperson, I want to appreciate Nola. She's definitely one with the program. The request is just if it can please be, unless I oversaw it, if you could please share it as soon as it is finalized so that we can plan accordingly. Thank you, Nola.
Chair, I'd also like to register that I'll only be able to fly on Monday, from Joburg. Thank you.
I move to adopt.
Chair, I rise to second adoption. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Denison. He must also earn his gift.
Chairperson, if I do this, I have 5 minutes. Yeah. I assume that members went through the report, so I'll just lift a few things out. This is the assessment, the committee's assessment of the 4th quarter financial and non-financial performance of the department, and always PMTE with it, as well as the other entities. I'm not going to go through the legislation that says we should do this. We should all know that. The meeting took place on the, as I said, it was to assess 4th quarter performance report. And what we always do is do a comparison of 1, 2, and 3 of the financial year when we look at 4. So some of the matters that stand out for us, and this is a long outstanding thing, is the manner in which the department utilizes the budget to effect what it says in its programs. Now, we have 5 programs, and with all 5 of them, we have the situation that, and I'm not going to go through the transfers right now, but with all 5 of them, we have a situation that there's always under expenditure in every program due to, and this will always come out, and I think members must just look out for this. It's going to come out in the next quarterly performance again. It's the matter of compensation of employees' budget. And that's due to either unfilled positions or delayed filling of positions. That has a trigger right down, because now if I'm not appointed, you're not buying my chair, my office, I almost said my clothes, all the equipment that must be purchased for me to do my work. It's not bought, and that's your goods and services. So that's also attached then. And so the underspending in all 5 programs is serious. Because if you do not use your budget, you don't appoint your people, then you cannot properly do what you set out to do. And that's evident in what we see, the expenditure. By the way, the targets will show it's been done, but the money for that will not be spent. And that's the crisis that we have in this report. So that's the case for every single program. And so in here, our observations are that as previous quarters also, it showed slow spending under compensation of employees, goods and services, and transfers and subsidies. And the accounting officer explained it as due to non-filling of vacancies in all 5 main programs. The vacancies at the end of the 4th quarter stood at 164 personnel out of the total staff complement of 853, which is 19%. Then I'm not going to go through 2. The third one is important again, underspending in branches of the PMTE over the past 3 years. And that's again, compensation of employees. Then fourthly, the high expenditure rate of 98% against a low rate of program achievement, which is 48%. So please keep an eye on that type of thing, which indicates money is inefficiently used. You're doing stuff, but you're not doing everything that you can with the money. And whose money are you wasting? You're wasting every member of parliament's tax, 40% tax that they take from you, as well as every other citizen's money that's used to go to your department. That's very serious. Then illegal activities, construction mafia. This continues to impact negatively on the financial performance of the department. If it's not, if projects keep getting halted the way that it does, then allocated funds will remain unspent and your KPIs cannot be reported on, and that has been the case. There are some that could not have been reported on. And third, the last observation that we made is we expressed concern as a committee at the decrease, just like you did earlier on in the meeting. You expressed concern on the 11th of September already that the budget allocation for EPWP has been decreased. So how do you then achieve your target of 1 million employment opportunities created by 2030? So, Chairperson, those are the observations. We did not make recommendations because in the case of quarterly performance reports, it must be kept in mind that we as a committee follow a process of continuous assessment from quarter 1 to 4. Prior to the annual report coming out, we then have a draft report ready for the BRRR that's based on all those observations, and those are recommendations for the BRRR. So, Chairperson and members, I think I took 4 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. And members, you must also consider the fact that we have not adopted BRRR. And maybe I must ask this, I don't know to who has a proper answer for the sake of all of us. What impact really does it give to us as a committee with the late submission or tabling of the annual report? We, as a committee, we did not adopt BRRR. And how does it make us look? Beside questioning the department, it's amongst ourselves. I'm worried myself as a committee member, and I believe even yourselves who are worried. Maybe we could check what must be done. It's not our making. If they don't table, there's nothing that we can do, but how best can we try not to have such challenges? The reason today's meeting gave us hope. It shows there's unity in the department and we're looking forward. Even they must assist each other into dealing with their audit outcomes. It's just that it was not the day of those questions, but IDT was there. So it's IDT, PMTE, that has delayed the tabling to the speak. And the AG. So those are some of the things while we're considering what you have presented. Members, can we talk to it and consider the report? I just felt I must make that remark because it does not even sit well with me, but I'm not even sure what to do. Do you have any other member who wants to interact? Honorable Murray.
The best is always to be blunt and honest. So I don't know if it's must inform the chair of chairs. There's such somebody you should inform, and you just stipulate the correctness in a sense and the truth because of A, B, and C. It was not tabled in time. Point. Say less, always better, but to the point. Thank you.
Can I get a hands of considering the report as it was presented by our content advice? Can you respond to that?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable members, we immediately when we received the letter from the minister indicating that they won't be able to meet the deadline, we wrote a formal letter to the House Chair and informed him, apologizing that we won't make the deadline based on those circumstances. And unfortunately, we are not able to consider and adopt our PRRR without formal ARs being tabled to Parliament. So we did actually indicate that we will await then the ARs to be tabled at least before or during or after the 30th of October, as the minister has had promised. So then we'll be able, that's why our PRRR is now is scheduled for consideration on the 13th of November, because we're making it this time to just try and wait for that process to take place. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Ladies, members, can we consider and adopt? I think Schreiber has moved. Can we get indication from yourself, Honorable Murray?
I move.
Kobe?
Supported.
Do we have any contrary view? In the absence of non-members, I want to take this opportunity and appreciate you. It was a very fruitful and a good meeting. The announcement that I have is that we received a notice that multi-party caucus is no longer in this venue. You go to NCOP 12A, S12A. So it's a walking on. Already they're about to start. So women, we must rush to S12A. And I want to declare officially we adjourn. But while we are adjourning, can I quickly request support staff to quickly come closer? I want to share something with you. But members, especially the three women, rush to S. Oh, Barry, let's sing happy birthday to